Chapter 1065. Breakthrough, breakthrough, breakthrough again. From the beginning of Hutu's transformation into samsara to the subsequent series of actions, Hutu's cultivation broke through to the fifth level of the origin chaos with irresistible force. In fact, everything happened in the blink of an eye. Even Hongjun Tiandao could not react in time, let alone the others. He could only watch everything that was happening in front of him. In fact, even if he wanted to stop it, it would be futile. He could only return without accomplishing anything. Not to mention that Fang Qingshan would not let him succeed. More importantly, now that Hutu had transformed into samsara, the merit and luck were with her. All evil intentions would be targeted. It was fine if she did not have the strength. Just like the original trajectory, the newborn primordial spirit could only be slaughtered by Hongjun. However, it was different now. Not only did Hutu have a primordial spirit, but she also had a physical body. Moreover, the strength of her physical body was only slightly weaker than her real body. Hutu's ascension to sainthood was even greater than that of Hongjun's ascension. It was second only to the grand occasion when the Great Way retired and Hongjun Tiandao came into being. At this moment, countless desolation living beings were first shocked by Hutu's saintly power, then moved by Hutu's great mercy. Therefore, they all knelt in the direction of samsara and said, "Goddess Hutu is merciful." This bow was sincere. After all, this matter would be of great benefit to them as well. Other than saints, no one could guarantee that they would not die. Back then, the five-element great ancestor and the others could not, and not long ago, Tung Wang Kung could not either. Although the reincarnation birth only gave everyone a chance to reincarnate, having a chance was better than not having it all. Damn it, how could this be? Hutu has actually become a saint. How is this possible? First it's Blood Sea, then it's Fang Qingshan. Why is it that she's involved everywhere? Hong Ming, Immortal Qi. I didn't expect it to be given away. The shouts of desolation, living beings, finally woke up the people who were unwilling to be clear-headed. These people who were unwilling to accept the truth were naturally the demon clan, saints, and those who coveted the Hong Ming Immortal Qi. Looking at everything in front of them, they were filled with envy, jealousy, hatred, and exasperation. Especially for Hongjun and Nuwa of the demon race. Their expressions couldn't be any worse. For Nuwa, when she saw Hutu transforming into samsara, she was happy. After all, if Hutu died, the great formation of divine beings killing would be incomplete, and Wu people's strength would be greatly reduced. In the great war of sorcerer and demon, even if she didn't participate, the demon tribe would have a higher chance of winning. Unfortunately, not only was Hutu not dead, but she had also broken through to the primordial chaos realm. Furthermore, she was not at the beginner primordial chaos realm, but at least at the mid-stage primordial chaos realm. In the face of this aura, Nuwa simply had no strength to fight back. How could this be? Hutu alone was enough to defeat all the members of the demon clan, let alone the others. Whether it was her, the Zodion star formation, or the 33 heavens formation, they were all useless. At this moment, Nuwa's hatred toward Blood Sea and Fang Qingshan skyrocketed. After all, every time she met with misfortune and misfortune, his shadow would always be involved. When creating humans, she had compromised in order to borrow the cosmic cauldron. During the first war of the witch and demon clan, she had caused her saint to perish and lost all her numinous treasures. Not long ago, in order to trade for the mountain and river map, she had suffered another humiliation with the five-colored stone. Now, she had helped her sworn enemy, Wu people. She had caused the great war of the witch and demon clan to have an unexpected change. She and the demon clan could not see any hope of victory. It could be said that her hatred for Fang Qingshan could not be washed away even with all the water in the 5 lakes and 3 rivers. What about Hongjun? It was even more serious. He wanted Hutu to be reincarnated not because he wanted her to break through and advance further, but because he wanted to weaken the strength of Wu people. He wanted the Earth Tunnel to appear and perfect the world. Now, however, he bitterly regretted that he had been pressuring the golden thread every year and working for others. That was not all. More importantly, he had shot himself in the foot. Hutu did not die, and her cultivation level had broken through to the primordial chaos realm. Furthermore, she was not at the early stage primordial chaos realm, but the 5th stage primordial chaos realm. With such strength, there was no balance between the witch and demon clan. She alone was enough to beat up the entire demon clan. It was useless even if Sanqing and Jian Junti and the others were included. After all, the gap between the mid-stage primordial chaos and the early-stage primordial chaos was too big. Even the 3rd stage primordial chaos would be useless, not to mention that Sanqing and the others were only 1st stage primordial chaos. A 4th stage primordial chaos expert would only need to spend a little more effort to deal with 10 peak 3rd stage primordial chaos experts, not to mention that Hutu was at the mid-stage 5th stage primordial chaos. If Wu people did not retreat, the human clan would not be able to step onto the stage of history, and it would be difficult for saints to rise. More importantly, if Mount Buzhou did not fall, how could he completely control the earth desolation? Forget about this, he could still plan slowly. However, in the original plan of Hongjun and Hongjun Tiandao, the 3 talents would not be a tripartite confrontation. Instead, Hongjun Tiandao would control the Earth Tunnel and the human clan. The human clan was already under their rule. The Earth Tunnel had originally been in their plan, but now it had completely escaped their control. Hutu and the Earth Tunnel could not be completely compared to Hongjun and Hongjun Tiandao. However, there were no longer nonentities that could not fight back. Unfortunately, no matter how angry they were or how unwilling they were to accept it, this was the truth and could not be changed by their will. Thank you, Feng Daoist. Hutu thanked Feng Qingshan from the bottom of his heart after adapting to his new body. Although her current cultivation level had surpassed Feng Qingshan's, Hutu did not dare underestimate Feng Qingshan at all. Firstly, she was not someone who would burn bridges after crossing them. More importantly, the threat she felt from Feng Qingshan's body had not weakened even though her cultivation level had become stronger. On the contrary, it was precisely because her cultivation level had become more powerful and her perception had become clearer that she understood what kind of threat this was. At the same time, she also understood why Hongjun and Hongjun Tiandao were just 2 primordial chaos experts on the surface. The most powerful one, Feng Qingshan, was only at the mid-stage of primordial chaos. It was probably not only because of Yang Mei of the East Sea, but also because of Blood Sea and Hongjun Tiandao. I'm afraid the 2 of them have a unique trump card that others don't know about. I just don't know what it is. Hutu thought to herself, during the last great sorcerer and demon war and the Battle of Chaos, when Feng Qingshan had advanced to the Timeless Arc, Hutu and the others had already fainted. Therefore, they had not seen the advancement of the Timeless Arc and the fall of Hongjuan Saint. Otherwise, she would have known that Feng Qingshan's trump card was the Timeless Arkansas. All right, we're just benefiting each other. It's a win-win situation. Feng Qingshan waved his hand and smiled. The netherworld has appeared, and reincarnation has appeared. However, the entire netherworld is still incomplete. Why don't you allow me to lend you a hand? Thank you, Taoist. Please. Hearing this, Hutu nodded and did not refuse. Good. Feng Qingshan nodded and said in a clear voice, reincarnation has appeared. There should be hell in the netherworld to manage everything. Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Qingshan's words seemed to follow the law, and it also seemed to have triggered the emergency mechanism of this world. The entire nether realm was in an uproar. Chapter 1066. At this moment, Feng Qingshan seemed to have replaced Hutu. He was one with the Tao, and his words were the law. The boundless power of the Tao and the power of the law manifested according to Feng Qingshan's will. This was the power of the netherworld, the power of the Tao, and even the origin power of the entire world. The first thing that manifested was a majestic checkpoint, just like the southern heavenly gate of the heavenly realm. However, compared to the magnificence of the southern heavenly gate, this checkpoint paled in comparison. The city walls were made of black stones, and they glowed scarlet. They emitted a gloomy and cold aura, and there seemed to be ghostly wails and wolf howls. It gave people a gloomy and terrifying feeling. On the city gate, there were 3 flamboyant words: Gate of Hell. After passing through the Gate of Hell, one would step onto the Yellow Springs Road. On the Yellow Springs Road, yin and yang would be separated. A beautiful blood-red flower bloomed on the Yellow Springs Road. From afar, it looked like a carpet made of blood. Red spider lilies. One could only see the flowers, but not the leaves. The flowers and leaves disappeared, and they missed each other forever. This was a special product of the Netherworld, and it was also a top-grade spirit route. After walking through the Yellow Springs Road, one would arrive at the River of Forgetfulness, which was also the Yellow Springs River. The water was blood yellow, and it was filled with wandering ghosts that couldn't reincarnate. There were snakes and insects everywhere, and a fishy smell assaulted one's face. Ferocious ghost claws clawed at the water surface as if they were grasping at the last life-saving straw. The numerous malicious ghosts let out mournful cries. Just one look could make one's scalp go numb, and their hearts turn cold. There was a blue stone beside the River of Forgetfulness. It was a supreme treasure, and there were 4 blood-red words carved on it: Reach the opposite shore. This was the Stone of 3 Lives, and it contained the power of time, space, and reincarnation. It could see the 3 lives and 3 lives of the dead. The cause of the previous life, the effect of the current life, the rise and fall of fate, and the cycle of reincarnation. There was a bridge over the River of Forgetfulness called the Bridge of Helplessness. The bridge had 3 levels and 3 paths. The ghosts of good people could safely cross the upper bridge, while those who were both good and evil could cross the middle bridge. The ghosts of evil people crossed the lower bridge, but most of them were blocked by the ghosts into the dirty waves under the bridge, where they were bitten by the copper snakes and iron dogs. On the Bridge of Helplessness, there was a pot filled with boiling soup. This soup was called amnesia water, also known as Grandma Meng's soup. Once it was drunk, one would forget the past. Love, hate, affection, and hatred, the ups and downs of life, joy, anger, sorrow, joy, the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Everything would be forgotten. Only when one's cultivation broke through to earthly immortal, golden immortal, grand heavenly immortal, or other fortuitous encounters would the effects of Granny Meng's soup be broken, allowing one to remember their past and present lives. Of course, there was one person missing, Meng Pa. However, the reincarnation underworld had just been established. Ox head, horse face, black and white impermanence, and Meng Pa naturally did not exist. However, this person's original trajectory should have been formed by the Ho-Tu corpse slaying. Near Granny Meng's soup, there was a high platform called Homesickness Platform, also known as Homesickness Ridge. As the saying went, the ghosts on the Homesickness Platform were in a panic, looking with tears streaming down their faces. Their wives and children were by their side, and their relatives and friends gathered in the morning hall. This was the last time the spirits of the dead would escape to the world of the living. After this, they would drink Granny Meng's soup, and everything would start anew, reincarnation and new life. After that, it would be the 6 paths of reincarnation. Not long after, the underworld's evolution was completed. The gates of hell, the road to the Yellow Springs, the River of Forgetfulness, the Bridge of Helplessness, the Stone of 3 Lives, and the Homesickness Platform were built. Fang Qingshan paused for a moment before continuing. When the underworld is formed, there will be a place for punishment. When the living beings die, they will be judged for their merits and demerits. Those whose merits are greater than their demerits will enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. Those whose merits are greater than their demerits will enter the 18 paths of reincarnation. Only after atoning for their sins can they enter the reincarnation cycle. Those who have committed heinous crimes will be sent to the endless hell, never to be reincarnated. The 18 paths of hell will be established. As soon as he finished speaking, the 18 levels of hell manifested under the power of the earth. The first layer was the hell of tongue-ripping, The second layer was the hell of scissors. The third layer was the hell of iron trees. The fourth layer was the hell of mirrors of sin. The fifth layer was the hell of steamer. The sixth layer was the hell of copper pillars. The seventh layer was the hell of Saber's Mountain. The eighth layer was the hell of iceberg. The ninth layer was the hell of oil cauldron. The 10th layer was the hell of bull pit. The 11th layer was the hell of stone crushing. The 12th layer was the hell of mortar and mortar. The 13th layer was the hell of blood ponds. The 14th layer was the hell of tragic death. The 15th layer was the hell of punishment. The 16th layer was the hell of volcano. The 17th layer was the hell of grinding stone, and the 18th layer was the hell of saw knives. The 18 levels of hell weren't just formed from the energy of the Tao. They were natural spirit treasures that were equivalent to top-grade connate spirit treasures. Once inside, even a perfected golden immortal would find it difficult to escape. As for the power of the punishment, it could really be said that it was a living hell. Each layer of hell was 20 times more bitter than the previous one, and their lifespan was doubled. Furthermore, beneath the 18 layers of hell was a special space known as the seamless hell. Anyone who entered the seamless hell would never be able to live again. That wasn't all. Feng Qing Shan continued. The underworld has just been established. The official position of the Divine Arbiter cannot be left vacant. In the desolation, the Wu people and the Azura clan are part of the 6 paths of reincarnation. They can enter the underworld and manage the netherworld. According to the original trajectory, it should have been Oxhead and Horseface, the black and white impermanents. However, Feng Qing Shan had changed it. After all, fertile water should not flow to outsiders. In the underworld, as long as one worked diligently, one could also share merits. Moreover, this could be considered a path of retreat for the Wu people and the Azura clan, especially for the Azura clan. After all, he would have to leave the desolation sooner or later. Once he left the desolation, if the Azura clan didn't grow up and didn't have a strong expert, the situation would become complicated and a disaster would befall them. And with the position of the Taoist master of the 6 paths and the godhood of locking up malicious ghosts and guiding the souls of the dead, it could be considered as adding 2 more protective locks. Even if they couldn't survive in the desolation in the future, they could still keep a job in the underworld. If this still couldn't save the situation, then it could only be said that this was fate. As for the Yama Kings of the 10 halls and the Lord of the 18 levels of hell, apart from the Azura clan and the Wu people who were willing to come, most of the positions were still empty. This wasn't for Hong Jun and the others, but for future selection from the ghost cultivators. Flowing water doesn't rot, and household hubs don't rot. This could also be considered a reward mechanism for ghost cultivators. The so-called 3,000 Great Paths, all of them could lead to the origin world. Although the ghost cultivators were not elegant, who knew if there would be a heaven's proud son of heaven who would truly walk a path to the heavens? Boom! The underworld was established, and there was a general framework. Thunder sounded again, and merits fell from the 9 heavens. This was the reward for Feng Qing Shan's perfecting the underworld and samsara. Just like before, Feng Qing Shan didn't use merits to increase his cultivation. He waved his hand and put it into the treasure realm. Everything was settled. Hutu was about to say something to Feng Qing Shan when suddenly there was a change. Buzz! An invisible pressure that even Feng Qing Shan and Hutu, with their high cultivations, could feel was pressing down on them. The entire blood sea and the underworld were shaken. For a moment, blood waves surged into the sky, and ghost chi was like a tide. Then, the void above the blood sea and the underworld fluctuated, and a huge eyeball appeared out of nowhere. There was not a trace of emotion in the eye, and it was cold and emotionless, emitting a great pressure. Chapter 1067. The Eye of Hong Jun Tiandao. Feng Qing Shan and Hutu were no strangers to the eyes that suddenly appeared above the netherworld and the blood sea, which seemed to make people unable to resist and was filled with deep malice towards them. Moreover, the 2 of them had basically guessed the reason for his appearance and purpose. Hutu turned into reincarnation and let the earth tunnel come into the world. For herself, For the Wu people, and even for Hongjun Tiandao and the world, it was immeasurable merit. However, she had achieved the primordial chaos realm, and even had the earth tunnel fit to contend against Hongjun Tiandao. This was not the result that Hongjun Tiandao and Hongjun were willing to see. The reason why they did not stop at the first moment was that Hutu and Fang Qingshan had acted quickly. In addition, at that time, the earth tunnel came into the world, and the netherworld came into the world. With the light of providence, even the world's will and the will of the great path were paying attention. Thus, Hongjun Tiandao did not dare to be too arrogant. However, everything had been settled now. Although the light of providence and merit were still there, the world's will and the great path had retreated. Although Hongjun and Hongjun Tiandao could not change the established facts, they could make it the most beneficial for them. Lying high in the 9 clouds, the meditation cushion is the true Tao. Beyond heaven and earth, I am the sect master. Pangu gave birth to Tai Chi, the Yin and Yang 4 divisions. One Tao passed on to 3 friends, the 2 sects divided. The Xianmen are the leaders, and the 1 Qi is Hongjun. As a Tao song sounded, the purple Qi came from the east. It was Daozu Hongjun, following the eye of Hongjun Tiandao, who drove the blood sea and the netherworld. Feeling the pressure and killing intent of the eye of Hongjun Tiandao and Hongjun, especially the Ashura tribe in the blood sea, they were like walking corpses and even fell down one by one. Some of them directly exploded and died. Hutu and Fang Qingshan did not hesitate at all and immediately used their trump cards. On the one hand, it was to prevent Hongjun Tiandao from doing something desperate and catching them off guard. On the other hand, it was also to deter them. They were not powerless to fight back. If they acted recklessly, they had to think about whether they were ready for a life-and-death struggle. Buzz. A wheel appeared above Hutu's head, emitting boundless brilliance. There was life and death, there was time and there was space, there was fate, there was karma. There was fate, 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 there was no end to it. The 6 paths of reincarnation golden disc. The earth treasure was equivalent to the divine artifact of Hongjun Tiandao, the good fortune jade plate. It was the most powerful spirit treasure nurtured by the underground world, and it was also the spirit treasure of the master of the underground world. For Hutu, it was even more important than the book of life and death and the judge's brush. After all, to the netherworld, the 6 paths of reincarnation were more important than anything else, and controlling the 6 paths of reincarnation meant controlling everything. On the other hand, the book of life and death and the judge's brush were only spirit treasures of the netherworld, and they didn't represent the entire netherworld. Disregarding everything else, just the great alone made the two completely different. Although the book of life and death and the judge's brush were not bad, they were only top-grade Khanate numinous treasures. At best, they could rival Khanate cardinal treasures in the netherworld due to the blessing of providence. On the other hand, although the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation couldn't compare to the good fortune jade plate, it wasn't any weaker than the 3 treasures of creation. With the power of the great earth, it could even rival a chaos spirit treasure. If Hongjuan's eyes darkened when he saw the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation, his expression didn't change much, but when he saw the timeless arc above Fang Qingshan's head, his pupils shrank to the size of a needle, and a monstrous killing intent filled the sky. The saint was here to hunt for the heavens, not to mention Hongjun. My will is heaven's will, and my heart is heaven's heart. As soon as he moved, the entire world trembled. In an instant, a murderous intent comparable to the cataclysm caused everyone to shiver. The reason why Hongjun had made such a big move was naturally because it was this thing that had caused his death, and even caused Hongjun Tiandao's origin to be severely damaged. Now that he saw it again, old and new hatred surged in his heart. This thing had almost become his inner demon. Fang Qingshan didn't care about Hongjuan's condensed murderous intent at all. This was because Hong Jun was a rational person. The thunder was loud, but the rain was small. Before they were fully prepared and had complete control over the desolation, Hong Jun wouldn't make a move on him. Moreover, even if Hong Jun attacked him, Fang Qingshan wasn't afraid at all. If he couldn't win, he could just leave, all right? He could attack and retreat. Therefore, Fang Qingshan was naturally at ease. For a moment, whether it was the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation or the timeless arc, they both emitted a vast divine light. The power of the supreme treasure was revealed at this moment, and it fought against the restraining pressure of the Hongjun Tiandao's eye without being at a disadvantage. Hongjun Tiandao Daozu is unfair. The Lady of Earth has transformed into reincarnation and has great merit in the world. However, at this moment, the Daozu and Hongjun Tiandao are treating people who have done meritorious service like this. It's really disappointing. Fang Qingshan's voice was so loud that it instantly spread throughout the desolation. Although many people had already sensed the changes in the Blood Sea underworld, these people were in the minority after all. Moreover, most of them had a grudge with the Wu people of the Blood Sea or had nothing to do with them and didn't care. However, at this moment, the ordinary living beings who were cheering for the Lady of Earth's mercy were dumbfounded. As Fang Qingshan had said, if Hongjun Tiandao didn't even let go of a person with great merit like the Lady of Earth, wouldn't others feel even more insecure? For a moment, people's hearts were filled with panic and doubts about Hongjun Tiandao. Man can conquer nature. This sentence was not a joke. Water could carry a boat, but it could also overturn it. However, to achieve this condition, it didn't rely on the human clan, but on the desolation of all races and all living beings. Once all of them were questioned, there would be a quantitative change that could lead to a qualitative change. Especially for those who took the divine path and occupied the karma rank of heaven and earth. Once they were really questioned by all living beings, they wouldn't feel good even if their divine position and karma rank Tao fruit were not directly knocked down. Of course, for Hong Jun, this doubt was completely irrelevant. After all, he was the player. He was the one who made the rules. However, whether it was useful or not, he was definitely unhappy. Therefore, the eye of Hongjun Tiandao attacked directly. Bolts of heavenly thunder of purple heaven fell, passed through the Lady of Earth, and struck towards Fang Qingshan. After all, the Lady of Earth had great merit, so Hongjun couldn't do it openly. However, there was no such concern for Fang Qingshan. Boom, boom, the eye of Hongjun Tiandao didn't hold back at all. The overwhelming heavenly thunder of purple heaven fell on the timeless arc like a rapid drum beat. However, it couldn't break the defense of the timeless arc at all. It only made the great void immortal armor ripple. Is Daozu planning to silence everyone by killing them? Fang Qingshan sneered. I just want you to maintain your respect for Hongjun Tiandao. Hongjun said plainly. Hongjun said indifferently. But the eye of heavenly Dao's attack also descended. The attack just now was just to test Fang Qingshan's strength. After all, with the integration of the Sky Demon Sky, the birth of the Sage, the birth of the human Dao, and so on, Hongjun Tiandao's source was not only restored but also strengthened. Hongjun wanted to see how strong Fang Qingshan was now. However, after some probing, Hongjun's eyes couldn't help but darken a little. Chapter 1068. Under Hongjun Tiandao, small forces can be reversed, but if the general trend doesn't change, Hongjun won't appear. Now, the two of you have gone too far. He didn't test Fang Qingshan's strength, but Hongjun could feel that it was the same as before. If he didn't use Hongjun Tiandao, he might not be able to take down Fang Qingshan. Although he was depressed, he didn't show it on his face. Gone too far? Ha! Fang Qingshan chuckled. General trend? What is the general trend? Is Hutu's death in samsara the general trend? I'm afraid this is the general trend of Hongjun Tiandao and Hongjun, not the general trend of the Great Path or the world. Fang Qingshan sneered. There is no difference between the three. Hutu, as the master of the underworld, is on the same level as Hongjun Tiandao. Do you want to control her? Haha, no matter what you say, you're just stealing the good fortune. Although there is a balance of the three, Hongjun Tiandao is the supreme. Does the Taoist really want to make things difficult for me? Hongjun's face became increasingly gloomy. Hongjun Tiandao controlled the three. This was a matter of authority. Hongjun wouldn't let it go no matter what. Today, the underworld would be out of control. Tomorrow, the Tao would be out of control. In the future, the Lich would be out of control. Then what was the use of Hongjun Tiandao? If he couldn't even control the whole desolation, what was the value of him joining Hongjun Tiandao that day? If he couldn't control the desolation perfectly, it would be even more difficult for him to transcend in the future. This was not only about authority, but also about the great path in the future. However, Hongjun wouldn't compromise in the slightest. It's not that we want to be enemies with the Taoist. It's that the Taoist isn't friendly to us. Fang Qingshan said lightly. It's always the Taoist who finds trouble with us first. We've never caused trouble before. This wasn't wrong, but it was a matter of position. As far as Fang Qingshan and the others were concerned, there was indeed no problem. But from Hongjun's point of view, anomalies like Fang Qingshan often escaped their control and messed up their plans. Regardless of whether they took the initiative or not, or whether they did it intentionally or unintentionally, anyone who went against his plans was an enemy. For a moment, the situation was in a stalemate. Sanqing, Niuhua, and Junti had also arrived at Samsara. They stood beside Hongjun and seemed to be cheering for him. Ro hid in the dark and stayed out of the matter, but his eyes flashed with thousands of schemes, as if he wanted to fish in troubled waters. Although Yang Mei didn't come, he still cast a glance over. With his speed, if he wanted to make a move, he could do so with a mere thought. The power of the sages is too strong. To ensure the safety of the desolation, the sages are not allowed to interfere in this cataclysm. Those who disobey will be punished by the heavens. Hongjun was silent for a moment before he said resolutely. His eyes were filled with determination. In the desolation, Hongjun Tiandao is the leader, and the underground tunnel can't be out of control. Now, the underground tunnel is newly established, and the netherworld is unstable. Hutu is in charge, and we can't leave easily. Fang Qingshan and Hutu looked at each other. They knew that this was Hongjun's bottom line. If they didn't agree, Hongjun would take action. Okay, as long as Niuhua doesn't do anything, I won't either. Hutu thought for a moment and nodded. As for the underground tunnel, it's okay to surrender to Hongjun Tiandao, but you can't interfere. For Hutu, being an enemy of Hongjun would do more harm than good. She just wanted to protect the interests of the Wu people. Although surrendering to Hongjun Tiandao would cost her some benefits, it was not the best choice for her and the Wu people if she insisted on fighting. Even if she could get rid of Hongjun Tiandao in the end, she would suffer a crushing defeat and would no longer be able to make a comeback. Obviously, the loss outweighed the gain. In the end, it was a matter of strength. People had to lower their heads under the eaves. As for the allies, Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Dowren, they also relied on their ally, Yang Mei. Even if they had their own strength, it was not her or the Wu people's strength, and it was an external force after all. This time, Samsara had already owed the big brother a favor. Although Fang Qingshan would choose 3 treasures from the secret vault of the Wu people, in Hutu's view, the Wu people still had a great advantage. After all, the Hongming immortal Qi alone was enough to prove everything. After the matter was settled, Hongjun left with the sage. Seeing that there was no advantage to be gained, Ro also returned to the demonic sky. Seeing that there was no more advantage to be gained, Yang Mei also withdrew his gaze. However, it was not stable for the whole desolation. This was because Hutu had actually become a sage. This was a huge matter. Hutu and Zhu Wu's Tao validation. The strength of the witch and demon sects immediately reversed again. The most important thing was Hutu's strength. Even Laozi felt oppressed and invincible. This was obviously not something that a first-stage primordial chaos or even an early-stage primordial chaos could achieve. Fortunately, Hongjun immediately announced to the world that the sages could not intervene. Otherwise, they would be punished by heaven. On the surface, it seemed that Hongjun Daozu was very fair. He restricted Lady Nuwa and Hotazu Wu from intervening in this tribulation. The witch and demon sects did not intervene, which was even a good thing for all living creatures. After all, the power of the sage was too strong. Even if they did not attack them, when the immortals fought, the mortals would also suffer. However, this so-called fairness was only relative. If it had been in the past, Nuwa would probably have been very unhappy about the demon clan. After all, Nuwa was a trump card of the demon clan, especially when the sorcerer clan revealed their trump card, the great divine fiendish formation, and the great heavenly cycle stellar formation was not a match for it. However, after Hotu became a sage and soared to the sky, she was greatly relieved after hearing Hongjun's words. This was because if Hongjun did not restrict her, Hotu alone would be enough to hang up all the demon clan forces and beat them up. Regardless of whether it was Nuwa, the Zodion star array, the 33 heavens array, or even Sanqing to guide Juani, it was completely useless. After all, Hotu's real strength was only at the mid-stage of the 5th stage primordial chaos, not including the Tao. In the entire desolation, apart from Hongjun Tiandao, Yang Mei of the East Sea, and Fang Qingshan of the Blood Sea were the only ones who could contend with such strength. Therefore, the fairness of Hongjun was only relative to ordinary creatures in the demon clan, but it was extremely unfair to the Wu people. But so what? There had never been any fairness in the universe. The so-called fairness was only relative. Not to mention Hongjun Tiandao, even the Great Way and the existence of a higher level might not have absolute fairness. It was the same even at the level of the Everlasting Lotus. Was the counterattack against Hongjun fair to Hongjun? At the end of the day, it was still about interests and fists. Now, Hongjun's Daozu was powerful. Therefore, what he said represented the so-called trend of the world. Even if Hotazu Wu was dissatisfied, he could not go against the world. He could only accept this order. Compromise. Because of Blood Sea and Yang Mei, Hongjun compromised and did not act too blatantly as before. In contrast, Hotu also compromised and did not continue to provoke Hongjun. Everything stemmed from strength. Chapter 1069. Although the Wu people would suffer a greater loss, there was nothing they could do about it. Without the power of a sage, the strength of the demon tribe was greatly weakened. However, they still had the Jotion star formation and the 33 heavens formation. As for the Wu people, after losing Hotu, they could not even maintain the fighting capacity of a sage because the divine being's killing formation was incomplete. It seemed that the demon tribe had an advantage. It was even possible that the demon tribe could sweep away the Wu people in the next great war of sorcerers and demons. But obviously, they thought too much. In the original trajectory, the Lady of Earth had died and was imprisoned in the cycle of reincarnation. The wizard tribe could still refine the 12 divine banners and create another 13 ancestors of sorcery to restore the balance between the two races. Huta did not die, but proved his way. How could he let the demon tribe bully him? But now, neither Hutu nor the Wu people cared about this. After retreating from Hongjun, Hutu did not stay in the samsara for long. Instead, she took Fang Qingshan to the 100,000 Mountains, the ancestral land of the Wu people, and rushed to the Pangu Hall. Fang Qingshan had helped her, and now it was time to fulfill her promise. As for the Wu people, they felt like they were dreaming. They could not believe what was happening in front of them. They did not expect that Hutu had become a sage. This was the first major event that had happened to the Wu people. They were all overjoyed and wanted to go to the samsara immediately. Fortunately, Hutu stopped them. After all, at that time, the samsara was full of masters of the origin realm. Even if Emperor Jiang and the others came, they would not be able to help. If they fought, they might be affected. The 100,000 Mountains, the ancestral land of the Wu people, was close to Mount Buzhou. Like the Blood Sea, no outsiders would come here. It was not as dangerous as the Blood Sea, where ordinary Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals could die. Contaminated with karma and filth, even a sage-to-be would be in trouble. It was because the Wu people were xenophobic. If they did not agree with them, they would almost die if they entered this place. The best way to gain the approval of the Wu people was to win them in a fight or in a drinking contest. However, very few people could do this, and those who could do this would not come for the sake of gaining the recognition of Wu people, because it was not necessary. After all, in the desolation, most of the cultivators walked the path of qi refinement and not the path of body refinement. Even the ancient races like the dragons and phoenixes were the same. Today, a major event had occurred in the Grand Myria Mountains. Among the 12 tribes, countless Wu people, men and women, young and old, even babies were carried out. Just like the day when the Demon Clan went on a crusade against Penglai, the entire Wu people moved together. For a moment, the entire Demon Clan and even the Desolation Clan were in a state of panic. They thought that the Wu people were going to riot. However, it was also a false alarm, because the Wu people did not gather to attack the heavenly court, but to welcome the return of the Lady of Earth. Not long after, the space fluctuated and opened like a curtain. A man and a woman walked out, as if they were taking a leisurely stroll. Who else could it be but the Lady of Earth and Fong Qingshan? Greetings to the Lady of Earth, Zhu Wu. Congratulations to the Lady of Earth, Zhu Wu, for becoming a saint. May you live a long life and bless the Wu people with eternal prosperity. Under the leadership of Emperor Jiang and the others, hundreds of millions of Wu people spoke at the same time. Their voices shook the sky, and the entire Desolation Clan was shocked. Humph! Eternal prosperity? Wishful thinking. The Lady of Earth can't do anything. The Great Magi Demon War will be the beginning of the decline of the Wu people. Fresh flowers are embroidered, and oil is added to the fire. If heaven wants to kill them, it must first make them crazy. In the Demon Clan, when the saint heard the voices of the Wu people, his face immediately turned pale as if his parents had died. Of course, neither the Wu people nor Fong Qingshan knew about it. Even if they knew, they wouldn't care at all. All right, big brother, what are you doing? Don't make Fong Daoist laugh at you for no reason. Apparently, the Lady of Earth didn't expect Emperor Jiang to give her a surprise. She didn't react for a while and then blamed him. Haha, our little sister can become a saint. This is the most important thing for the Wu people. We were afraid that it would be too small and not dignified. Emperor Jiang laughed. Obviously, the Lady of Earth becoming a saint made them feel sincerely happy. As the leader of the Wu people, Emperor Jiang was responsible for the prosperity of the Wu people. The burden on his shoulders was not light, especially with the growth of the Demon Clan, the birth of the saints, and the targeting of Hongjun Tiandao. Sometimes he even couldn't breathe. Fortunately, the Lady of Earth proving the way made him feel relieved. He turned around and bowed to Fong Qingshan. Greetings, Fong Daoist. Thank you, Fong Daoist, for your help. I will never forget your great kindness to the Wu people. I will do whatever you say. Emperor Jiang was a sensible man. Although he didn't know the specific situation, he more or less knew what had happened in the netherworld. In addition, Hutu brought Fong Qingshan to the Wu people at this time. Obviously, her proving the way needed Fong Qingshan's help, and the help was not small. Emperor Jiang, Zhu Wu, you don't have to be so courteous. It's just a mutual benefit. Today, I'm the bad guy, and I'm here to collect the debt. Fong Qingshan smiled. All right, big brother, I don't care. But Fong Daoist is a guest from afar. Do you want us to stand here? Before Emperor Jiang said anything, Hutu interrupted. Yes, Daoist, please. As they were talking, the others left under the lead of the great wizard. But Fong Qingshan, accompanied by 12 Zhu Wu, walked to the core of the Wu people, the Pangu Hall. This is the Pangu Hall? Under the guidance of the 12 grand sorcerers, Fong Qingshan stopped in front of a hall in the distance and walked toward it. For the Wu people, the Pangu Hall was not only their trump card, but also the glory of Pangu, which was equivalent to the existence of Pangu. Therefore, they had always been respectful and awed. Within 1,000 miles of the Pangu Hall, no one could fight or fly. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Naturally, Fong Qingshan followed suit. From afar, a vast, vigorous, domineering, crafty, gloomy, cold, mysterious, icy, blazing, violent, pure, ethereal, peaceful, dark. An all-encompassing, yet completely organic, oppressive aura surged towards him. It made people feel a sense of awe unconsciously. They were shocked. Fang Qingshan had seen a lot of palace-type spirit treasures. The Demon Master Palace, a top primordial spirit treasure of the Kuan Peng, the Lingxiao Palace, a treasure of fortune of the Heavenly Court, which was comparable to a primordial supreme treasure, and even the Purple Cloud Palace, a primordial spirit treasure of Hongjun. But none of them could compare to the Pangu Hall of the Wu people. In terms of beauty, the Pangu Hall might not be as beautiful as the Lingxiao Palace, but it was full of chaos, or the vastness of the world at the beginning of the world. It was grand and simple. Even the Purple Cloud Palace, which had a profound Dao rune, couldn't compare to it. As he approached the Pangu Hall, the first thing that caught his attention was the plaque above the entrance of the hall, which had the words Pangu Hall written on it. With just a single glance, Fang Qingshan could feel an intimidating pressure emanating from within his heart, causing his entire body to tremble uncontrollably. Chapter 1070. Pangu Hall. Although there were only 3 words, Fang Qingshan felt that it was even more mysterious than Hongjun Tiandao. At that moment, Fang Qingshan seemed to have returned to the time when he had listened to the Dao in the Purple Cloud Palace before he had broken through to primordial chaos. At that time, Fang Qingshan had rushed to the Purple Cloud Palace in order to fight for the meditation cushion. In order to buy time for Sanqing, Hongjun had stimulated the Dao runes of the 3 words, causing Fang Qingshan to fall into an epiphany. At that moment, Fang Qingshan had experienced the same situation again. However, things were different now. After all, Fang Qingshan had broken through to primordial chaos and reached the mid-stage primordial chaos. Most importantly, he had even observed the outline of the everlasting lotus. Although the 3 words Pangu Hall had been left behind by Pangu, it could not be compared to the Dao rune pressure of the everlasting lotus, not to mention that it was not condensed by his heart. Therefore, although this bit of pressure was not bad, it was still not enough for Fang Qingshan. Not to mention that Fang Qingshan had climbed to the top of Buzhou Mountain and had faced this kind of pressure before. Therefore, he had developed a certain resistance to it. Therefore, he soon woke up from the shock caused by the 2 words Pangu Palace. Since he could break free from the shock, he could naturally obtain the creation. Although these 3 words could not be compared to the heaven-opening mark, the mystery of the Tao it contained was also beyond the understanding of Fang Qingshan's current cultivation level. After careful observation, he fell into a situation similar to Tao enlightenment. As expected, it was a product of Pangu. It was definitely a high-quality product. Just a few big words had benefited him a lot. As expected, upon seeing Fang Qingshan quickly break free from the Dao rune pressure and quickly fall into enlightenment, Zhu Wu could not help but sigh from the bottom of his heart. When Zhu Wu brought Fang Qingshan to Pangu's palace, he didn't say anything. Although the plaque of the Pangu Hall was a deterrent, as long as one didn't have any ill intentions towards the Wu people, they wouldn't be attacked. On the contrary, if one could break free, there would be unexpected benefits. Sure enough, Fang Qingshan's performance did not exceed their expectations. As expected of someone who dared to compete with Hongjun, he was indeed extraordinary. That's right, this is the Pangu Hall of the Wu people. Dijiang said proudly, then laughed. Welcome, Taoist. Taoist is the first guest to enter the Pangu Palace. Your presence brings light to our humble dwelling. No, it's my honor to be able to visit your Highness Pangu. Fang Qingshan shook his head and sighed with emotion. It wasn't that he was being modest, but he really thought so. After all, it wasn't often that he could observe a chaotic treasure at such a close distance. Moreover, it was rumored that the 33 heavens of the heavenly court were transformed from Pangu's brain, which controlled everything in the heavens and ran the affairs of the heavens. And the Pangu Hall was transformed from Pangu's heart, mysterious and unpredictable. No matter how fierce the battle between the liches and demons was, the flames of war would never involve the Pangu Hall. It turned out that the trajectory was like this. When Zhu Wu was defeated and killed, Mount Buzhou fell, and the Wu people were left with only a few weaklings. But because of the Pangu Hall, they could still dominate the North Continent. Of course, the reincarnation and peaceful heart also played a part in this. Fang Qingshan wanted to see if the Pangu Hall was transformed from Pangu's heart, or if Pangu had refined it by other means. Daoist, please. After Fang Qingshan woke up, Di Jiang invited him. Please. Fang Qingshan replied. Di Jiang led the way, and Fang Qingshan followed closely behind. Candle Jiuyin and the others clustered around Hutu and walked in together. After entering the Pangu Hall, the first thing that came into view was a statue of a mighty man. He was standing on the 36 lotus platforms, holding a giant axe and standing there in a chopping posture. There was a jade archive above his head, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. His face was hazy, and he seemed to be as tall as Mount Buzhou. Fang Qingshan was no stranger to this. Not to mention the aura and pressure that were the same as those of Mount Buzhou and the Wu people, but more mysterious. Fang Qingshan had received Pangu's inheritance, and the mark of Genesis had this person's face. Pangu. Yes, this statue was Pangu. No one knew whether it was left by Pangu or forged by 12th Zhu Wu later. However, Fang Qingshan secretly thought that it should have been left behind by Pangu, because with the abilities of the ancestral wizard, it seemed that he could not refine such a profound deity statue that even he could not raise to fight. A man's knees were full of gold, not to mention 12th Zhu Wu, who fought against heaven and earth, didn't respect Hongjun Tiandao, and didn't worship Hongjun. But at this moment, without any hesitation, everyone, including Hutu, who had proved Dao and become a saint and broken through the 5th stage of the origin realm, knelt in front of the statue. There was no trace of arrogance, and they were full of piety. Greetings, Father. May Father be immortal and bless the Wu people with eternal prosperity. Although Fang Qingshan didn't kneel, he still went forward and bowed sincerely. Junior Fang Qingshan greets Supreme, venerate Pangu. After all, Fang Qingshan had also received the inheritance of Pangu's mark of Genesis and could be considered a direct descendant of Pangu. The moment Fang Qingshan bowed, there was a sudden change in the heart of the statue of Pangu. It emitted a divine light and surged into Fang Qingshan's body. It was so fast that Fang Qingshan couldn't react. As for 12th Zhu Wu, he didn't even see it. Although Fang Qingshan couldn't react in time, the timeless Ark and Thunder Emperor in his body reacted immediately and quickly intercepted it. Although they didn't sense any malice, it was better to be safe than sorry. It was better to intercept it first. After being reminded by timeless Ark and Thunder Emperor, Fang Qingshan realized all this and was shocked. He had been too arrogant and thought that he could go anywhere in the world of desolation. Fortunately, the Wu people and Pangu statues didn't have any malice towards him. Otherwise, it would be hard to say how things would develop. After greeting Pangu, 12th Zhu Wu recognized Fang Qingshan and became more enthusiastic. He quickly took out good things to entertain Fang Qingshan. Although the Wu people couldn't use spiritual treasures because they didn't have primordial spirits, they couldn't maximize the effects of the various treasures of heaven and earth like the Qi refinement lineage. However, Khanate items were precious. As long as they came across them, they wouldn't let them go. In particular, all kinds of treasures of heaven and earth and spiritual roots were equally useful to them. They could be forged into weapons with witchcraft or directly consumed to improve their cultivation. As the Wu people shared the world with the Demon Clan, they naturally gained a lot from sweeping the continent of desolation. Not to mention the ordinary treasures of heaven and earth. Although there weren't any of the top 10 Khanate spiritual roots in desolation, there were many fruits of other Khanate spiritual roots that were one grade lower. As an ally of the Wu people, and it was his first time visiting the Wu people, Fang Qingshan naturally had to take out good things to entertain them. Fang Daoist, come and have a taste of our Wu people's 1,000 demon wine. How about it? Emperor Jiang called out generously. Emperor Jiang took out a wine pot and filled everyone's cups with good wine. Not to mention the wine, the pot, and cups alone were enough to amaze people. Chapter 1071. The cosmos in the sleeve was as big as the sun and moon in the pot. The wine pot turned out to be a superior grade, primordial spiritual treasure that specialized in brewing wine, and it was a spiritual treasure that contained space-time. It contained infinite space and could store wine from all over the world. It could also change the time so that the wine brewed could be stored in the cellar for a short period of time. Although the wine cup was not as good as the wine pot, it was also an inferior grade primordial spiritual treasure. It was called the luminous wine cup. If one wanted to drink grape wine, they had to use the luminous wine cup. This wine cup had no other effects, but it could bring out the best taste of the wine. 10,000 demon wine. It was a superior grade primordial spiritual treasure wine pot and inferior grade primordial spiritual treasure wine cup. The wine it contained was naturally extraordinary. The wine was dark yellow and slightly thick. Obviously, it had been stored in the cellar for a long time. Wisps of wine rose and evolved into the desolation of the 10,000 races. Of course, most of it was the current demon clan. It included almost all the demon clan, including the Golden Crow and the Kuamping. They roared in unison, and all kinds of creatures competed in the frosty sky, forming a strange phenomenon of 10,000 demons fighting. One could even vaguely hear the roars of dragons and phoenixes, as well as the roars of 10,000 demons. If it was a single roar, it would be fine. But when mixed together, it should have been a ghostly wail and wolf howl, but after some unknown chemical reaction, it actually became pleasant to the ear. Just like the tiger-leopard thunder roar of a martial arts practitioner, it could shake the body and temper the entire body. This wine was brewed by Wu people using the blood of 10,000 demons and many top-grade heavenly treasures with a unique method of witchcraft. Not only did it taste excellent, but it also had extraordinary effects. Fang Qingshan was not in a hurry to taste it. Instead, he took a deep breath. The wine that lingered above the wine cup immediately followed Fang Qingshan's breath and entered his nose. In an instant, his mind almost seemed to have become the real body of Pan Gu, holding the heaven-splitting giant axe and slaughtering the demon clan wantonly. That kind of refreshing feeling was intoxicating. Of course, this was only true for Wu people. For Fang Qingshan, he didn't feel intoxicated. However, that invincible will and belief was intoxicating. After a while, Fang Qingshan opened his eyes and impatiently took a sip of the wine. In an instant, this feeling became even clearer. It was a kind of invincible faith, a kind of heroic spirit to fight against the heavens and earth. It was truly a memorable experience that left one forgetting to leave. Of course, other than that, a pure energy flowed into his body through his throat and spread out. Accompanied by the roars of the 10,000 demons, it tempered his body bit by bit. Be it his skin, tendons, bones, acupoints, organs, it was like there was no blind spot at all. Moreover, compared to pills and external forces, not only was this kind of spirit wine more comprehensive and meticulous, it also didn't have any side effects like pill poison. Of course, with Fang Qingshan's mixed prime realm physical body, even though the myriad demon wine was good, it was obviously not of any use to him. Not to mention Fang Qingshan, it was the same for 12 Zuwu. At most, this wine was only useful to great magi. Moreover, it had to be stored for more than 1,000,000 years, so the effect might not be very good. In fact, this was normal. After reaching the grand heavenly realm, if one wanted to continue improving their cultivation other than enlightenment, they could only rely on meditation and hard work. Desolation was rare. In fact, there were almost no pills or spiritual fruits that could effectively improve one's cultivation. It was the same for ginseng fruits and peaches of immortality. It was already commendable that the myriad demon wine was still useful to great magi. After all, the weaker great magi had a cultivation base of early-stage grand heavenly realm. People like Ho, Yi, and Xing Tian were basically comparable to early-stage sage-to-be. Although the myriad demon wine had almost no effect on cultivation, it still tasted very good. In particular, The effect of strengthening one's invincible faith and heroic spirit to fight against the heavens and earth was even more addictive. Others aside, if one drank a mouthful during a battle, it would be like being injected with chicken blood or using a violent magic. One's combat strength would increase by 30%. Good wine. It can help in refining the body, increase combat strength, and temper the will. It's really a rare, top-notch spiritual wine. Being able to taste it today, it's really not a wasted trip. Fong Qingshan was not the kind of person who only focused on cultivation. When it was time to relax, he also knew how to strike a balance between work and rest. In particular, his desire for good food had never been extinguished. From time to time, he would use the 5 grand heavenly sound rice and various spiritual vegetables to cook a table full of dishes for himself. Of course, he also drank wine. However, even the best wine that Fong Qingshan had drunk could not compare to the myriad demon wine. That kind of heroic spirit that wanted to compete with the heavens made him, who is usually rational, want to fight out. After a long time, Fong Qingshan opened his eyes and let out a sigh of admiration. This wine was really mysterious. Its beauty was indescribable. It was too wonderful for words. It was no wonder that with Wu people's background, Di Jiang still took it out to treat Fong Qingshan like a treasure. Such a wine could be considered rare, even in the myriad of worlds. It was a treasure that was hard to find in the entire world. At least in the desolation world, other than the first batch of fruits from the top 10 natural spiritual roots, it was hard to find anything that could compare to this wine. Swords should be given to heroes, pearls should be given to beauties. Good wine needed to be tasted with people who knew how to drink. Only then would one live up to the Buddha. Though the myriad demon wine was good, if it were someone else, such as Primal Lord or Niuhua, even if the effects were good, the two would not like it. There wouldn't be such a feeling of mutual appreciation. Therefore, hearing Fong Qingshan's heartfelt admiration, Di Jiang felt that his efforts were not in vain. The myriad demon wine was put to good use. This wine is the essence of the demon blood that we, Wu people, collected from hunting demons and the last great war of sorcerer and demon. It was combined with 129,600 primordial spiritual items, 10,000 types of low, 1,000 types of medium, 100 types of upper, and 10 types of top spiritual fruits. It took me 49 years to make this wine. Then, it was stored in the top primordial spiritual treasure, the drunken Saint Flagon, for thousands of years. This time, if my sister didn't become a sage and the Taoist didn't visit, I wouldn't have brought it out. If the Taoist likes it, I will give you half when we leave. Di Jiang saw Fong Qingshan's unsatisfied look. Although he was a little reluctant, he still generously gave half of the spiritual wine. On the one hand, he was grateful. On the other hand, he felt that a sword should be given to a hero, and a beauty should be given to a woman. A gentleman doesn't take what others like. If the Taoist is willing, why don't you tell me the recipe of the myriad demon wine? My blood sea lacks everything except blood deficiency and spiritual roots. Fong Qingshan shook his head and refused. On the one hand, as he said, a gentleman doesn't take what others like. It was not easy for Wu people to make the myriad demon wine. On the other hand, even if he gave them half, it would still be too little. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Rather than asking for the wine, it was better to ask for the recipe. As for whether he would seem greedy or not, Fong Qingshan felt that if he was allowed to choose the treasures in the secret vault, even though the myriad demon wine was good, the recipe might not be as good as those spiritual treasures. Moreover, the recipe could only be shared, not monopolized. Chapter 1072. Not only were Di Jiang and the others not displeased by Fong Qingshan's request, which was like a lion or a dragon king opening its mouth wide, but his straightforwardness was in line with their temperament. If they liked something, they liked it. If they wanted something, they just said it. Of course, this was only because Fong Qingshan could talk to the Wu people as equals. Moreover, the Wu people owed boss Fong Qingshan a favor. In this world, the hardest thing to repay was a favor. Therefore, Di Jiang and the others were more than happy to use the wine recipe to alleviate some of that. As expected, Dijiang slapped his forehead and agreed without any hesitation. I forgot about that. No problem. For the sorcerer race, they had to kill demons in order to brew the myriad demon wine. However, for the blood sea, there was no need for this at all. Humans sat at home, and blood fell from the sky. As long as a demon died, blood spirits would naturally gather in the blood sea. As for spiritual roots, Fang Qingshan's timeless arc had more spiritual roots than the Wu people, except for the top-level ones. Thank you very much. Fang Qingshan smiled. It's impolite not to reciprocate. I took the Taoist's myriad demon wine, so I can't not reciprocate. Before Dijiang and the others could speak, Fang Qingshan took out a handful of spiritual rice. This is the pentagram Heavenly Sound Rice. Born from the pentagram, it's naturally very effective. It's not as effective as the myriad demon wine, but it has no resistance. At least it's effective before the origin immemorial stage. Whether it's body tempering or qi cultivation, it has a subtle effect. It's just like meditating or polishing one's body. It's also very easy to cultivate. The Taoist only needs to choose a piece of spiritual soil, water it with spiritual water, and wait for the harvest. However, the better the spiritual soil and spiritual water, the better the effect of the pentagram Heavenly Sound Rice. Thank you, Taoist. It would be impolite for Dijiang to refuse. Dijiang was going to refuse, but his eyes brightened after hearing Fang Qingshan's explanation. Compared to the qi cultivators, the more they cultivated, the less human they were. They ate wind and air, breathed in the spirit of the world, and absorbed the essence of the sun and the moon. At most, they ate some natural treasures or refined elixirs. The body cultivators didn't mind meat and vegetables. Other than absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon like the qi refinement lineage, the magi were not good at alchemy. Therefore, most of the time, they ate meat, medicinal cuisine, and spiritual wine. Therefore, other than the wine of innumerable demons, Emperor Jiang brought out many other delicacies as well, such as dragon liver, phoenix gallbladder, tiger bone soup, rock wings, elephant trunk, and chilan legs. Of course, there was no lack of delicacies cooked from all kinds of treasures. The wine didn't intoxicate the guests, but they were intoxicated. While eating delicious food and drinking spirit wine, they naturally talked about Ho Tu becoming a saint. Zhu Rong couldn't wait to ask Ho Tu, "Little sister, tell me, what is the transmigration?" "It's like this." Ho Tu did not hesitate. She told him everything that happened after she left the Wu people, went to the Blood Sea. Fang Qingshan proposed a solution, turned into reincarnation, appeared in Hongjun, and tried to imprison her. During this period, after hearing Ho Tu's description, Zhu Wu, who was not a calm person, naturally had a great reaction at this moment. Of course, part of it was because of Zhu Wu's nature, but more of it was because he was too concerned. Zhu Wu looked at Ho Tu reproachfully. Obviously, this method was beneficial to the Wu people, but they didn't agree with Ho Tu's method. Hearing that Hongjun wanted to imprison Ho Tu, he was furious. He wished that he could join the Wu people's army to attack Hongjun Tiandao. Hearing that Fang Qingshan had helped him, he thanked him sincerely. All of them patted their chests and drank 3 bowls of wine. As for Ho Tu's promise to Fang Qingshan to choose 3 spiritual treasures from the secret vault, Dijiang and the others had no objection. First of all, although these treasures were good and many of them were chaotic spiritual treasures, most of them were broken. Moreover, the Wu people were transformed from the essence blood of the great god Pangu. They were eroded by the turbid qi of the earth, which led to the loss of their primordial spirits. Therefore, they formed the Zhu Wu system, which only cultivated their bodies but not their primordial spirits. Therefore, except for a few weapons, such as Ho Yi's sun shooting bow, Xing Tian's Ganqi axe, Dijiang's short stick, Gongong's broken jade hook, and so on, the others could only be seen but not used. At most, they could be used as talisman treasures. Moreover, most of them were broken and could not be used. Even if they were complete chaotic spiritual treasures, they could still use them. Compared to the Wu people, they had one more expert of origin at the middle stage of origin. Compared to Hoodoo's life, they would agree without hesitation. Of course, if they went back on their word, the consequences would be even more serious. They had already offended Hong Jun. If they offended Fong Qingshan, even with the Pangu Palace and the means left by Pangu, they would probably end up in desolation. Therefore, no matter what, they wouldn't have any objections to this deal. Thank you, Fong Daoist. After listening to Hutu's narration, Di Jiang and the others stood up again and bowed to Fong Qingshan. Forget it, I also have a purpose. Fong Qingshan turned sideways and accepted half of the bow. Buzz. 12 Zhu Wu joined hands to perform a Dharma formula, activating something similar to a teleportation formation. They brought Fong Qingshan to the door of a hall. The entire Pangu Palace was a chaotic spiritual treasure, and it was almost a top-notch one. It was superior to Yang Mei's Green Willow Staff and Hongjuan's Purple Cloud Palace. It was even comparable to the broken jade plate of fate. It contained a world. Although it was not as good as Desolation, it had surpassed the boundaries of the universe and reached the level of Desolation. The space inside was so large that even with Fong Qingshan's primordial chaos cultivation, it would take him some time to fly. Fortunately, although the space was large, the Pangu Palace was completely controlled by the Wu people. Therefore, there was no need to use escape techniques to fly. There were teleportation formations inside. Although they could not reach the level of teleportation, they were almost there. The place where Di Jiang and the others brought Fong Qingshan was naturally where the Wu people's secret vault was located. They were not afraid of exposing their identity, because it was basically impossible to steal from the Pangu Palace. Apart from other things, the three big words Pangu Palace at the door alone were like a demon-revealing mirror. Anyone who harbored evil intentions against the Wu people would all show their true colors. They could not even enter the Pangu Palace. Moreover, even if they entered the Pangu Palace with the power of the Pangu Palace and the means left by Pangu, even if Hongjun Tiandao came, entering it would be like walking into a trap. Whether they could escape unscathed was a problem. Moreover, after entering the Pangu Palace, if one wanted to reach the secret vault, the 12 Zhu Wu had to work together to open the passage. As for the key to the secret vault, each of the 12 Zhu Wu had a key. Under normal circumstances, the 12 Zhu Wu Taoist right could only be opened at the same time. Of course, if they had the key, it was fine if they did not. Chapter 1073. Well, here we are, Fong Daoist. You can go in, you can choose as long as you like. You don't have to limit yourself to 3, as long as you don't empty the treasure house. After you finish choosing, the treasure house will send you out. I hope you can find the treasures you want. Emperor Jiang laughed. In an instant, the door of the hall opened. A crack appeared in an instant, emitting an invisible swallowing force, sucking Fong Qingshan in on the spot. Fong Qingshan did not resist during this process. In the blink of an eye, the stars moved, the sky was spinning, the scenery in front of him changed, and when he opened his eyes again, it was a different world. Fong Qingshan glanced around and couldn't help but take a breath on the spot. He couldn't help but be speechless. Although he had been mentally prepared for the luxury of Wu people's treasure house, when he saw it, he couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Fong Qingshan originally thought that his treasure world was already 1 in a million, but compared with Wu people's treasure house, not to say the difference between a firefly and the moon, it was not much different. The number of treasures added up was probably more than the entire immortal world at the beginning. As for the quality, not to mention, after all, the top quality treasures were left by Pangu. Although he didn't deliberately collect them, none of the chaotic products were simple. Just like in later generations, when the innate did not exist, the innate objects were as rare and precious. Fortunately, almost all the chaotic level treasures were incomplete. Otherwise, perhaps Zhu Wu would not let Fong Qingshan enter at all. As expected of the authentic Pangu, as expected of Pangu's legacy. Although Pangu left Sanqing a mysterious yellow, exquisite pagoda, 3 layers of heaven-opening merit, the opportunity to become a sage, and the cause and effect of the heaven-opening treasure, the heritage left to Wu people is even greater. Seeing the scene in front of him, Fang Qingshan was completely shocked. This was because not only were the treasures in the treasury not inferior to his treasure world, but the quality of the treasures was also incomparably high. Among them, the lowest grade ones were the superior grade primordial spiritual treasures, superior grade primordial spiritual roots, and superior grade heavenly materials and earthly treasures that Wu people had obtained by plundering the world of desolation after they were born. As for the treasures left behind by Pan Gu, they were all chaos level. Among them were chaos archdevil's flesh and blood, chaos spiritual treasures, and chaos grade natural treasures. Of course, apart from the chaos level equipment, the flesh and blood of the chaos demon gods were incomplete because many of them had evolved into desolation heaven and earth like Pan Gu. Chaos spiritual artifacts were damaged as well. Some of them had even fallen in grade. Some were like the gourd of life and death. Although they still looked the same, they were on the verge of shattering. In the secret vault of Pan Gu Palace, Fang Qingshan took a quick glance, and the first thing that caught his eye was a spiritual root. This wasn't an ordinary spiritual root. It was neither acquired nor innate, but a chaos spiritual root. Apart from Yang Mei's hollow willow tree, this was the first chaos spiritual root that Fang Qingshan had seen. Of course, this chaos spiritual root couldn't be compared to Yang Mei's hollow willow tree, which had almost reached the limit of chaos spiritual roots. This tree was called the Araya tree, and it was a low-grade chaos spiritual root. Araya was the combination of one's nature and delusion. It was the sustenance of all the seeds of good and evil, and it was the first understanding of all things in the universe. It bore the Araya fruit. Eating this fruit could stimulate one's potential of good and evil to the greatest extent. In other words, if one's nature was good, then the good side of one's nature would be completely stimulated. One didn't need to become like Mother Teresa, but it could improve one's understanding of the laws of light, pure yang, righteousness, and so on. If one's nature was evil, then the evil side of one's nature would be completely stimulated. Similarly, one wouldn't become a murderous sinner, but it could improve one's understanding of the laws of slaughter, destruction, demons, and so on. In fact, it was somewhat similar to the Taoist tree that Fang Qingshan had obtained. However, the Taoist tree that Fang Qingshan had obtained changed one's affinity with the elements. It was a Hongjun Tiandao physique, while the Araya tree changed one's understanding of the laws. It was a chaotic physique, which was more suitable for cultivating in the chaos. However, this function was of little value during the chaotic era. After all, chaotic creatures were originally born from the chaos, so how could they not be suitable for cultivating in the chaos? What a pity! Fang Qingshan couldn't help but shake his head in the end. Although the Araya tree was not bad, it wasn't of much use to him. The greatest help it could provide was nothing more than providing the world tree clone with a wood origin. As for improving one's good and evil attribute and indirectly improving one's understanding of the Tao, it wasn't as useful as one imagined. After all, Fang Qingshan's cultivation level had already risen to the mid-stage primordial chaos, and he had comprehended the high-level laws of the 5 elements. In the future, he would still need to improve and transform it into the top-notch transmigration law. The effect of the Araya fruit was like a drop in the bucket for him. Of course, Fang Qingshan didn't find it a pity that the Araya tree wasn't very useful to him. Instead, he found it a pity that these spirit roots and numinous treasures had been randomly collected by Pan Gu after he had killed the 3,000 fiend celestials. How great would it have been if Pan Gu had started collecting them in the chaos? Fang Qingshan sighed. Given Pan Gu's identity as the son of the great Tao, there were few spirit roots and numinous treasures in the chaos that he couldn't obtain as long as they were ownerless. Unfortunately, at that time, Pan Gu didn't have such thoughts at all, because those things weren't of much use to him at all. Moreover, it was difficult for someone who had seen the ocean to be water. Apart from Mount Wu, he wasn't a cloud, and he sat on 3 supreme chaos treasures. How could anything else enter his eyes? From another perspective, it was precisely because these treasures had been randomly collected and were broken that he had left them to the Wu people. Otherwise, Pangu wouldn't have dared to leave them to the Wu people. Even if he had left them, Fang Qingshan wouldn't have known about it. After all, an innocent man would get into trouble because of his wealth. If there were hundreds of complete chaos spiritual treasures, the heavenly Tao would probably take the risk of both sides suffering and exterminate the Magi clan at the first moment. After calming himself down, Fang Qingshan was in the mood to carefully look at the treasures in the entire secret warehouse. Although he had already sighed with emotion before, when he looked at them slowly, Fang Qingshan still couldn't help sighing with emotion. It was true that leaning against a big tree was a good way to enjoy the shade, even if the tree had fallen. The things left behind were enough to make people drool. At this moment, Fang Qingshan wished he could empty the entire secret warehouse of the Wu people. Indeed, the things here were too frightening. The feeling of being able to see them but not be able to get them could almost drive people crazy. Fortunately, he still had a sense of reason. A gentleman loved money and got it in a proper way. Taking things by force, especially from his allies, was contrary to his nature. Besides, even if Fang Qingshan had this idea, it wouldn't help at all because he couldn't take it out of the main hall of Pangu. Chapter 1074. No matter how many treasures there are, there's nothing to covet if they don't belong to me. I'll only take one scoop that belongs to me. Only when I use it can I feel comfortable. Otherwise, karma will implicate me and my heart will be clouded, which will be very disadvantageous to my cultivation. Treasures may be good, but the great Tao is only true. Fang Qingshan shook his head and cut off the greed in his heart. A man's heart was never content. Contentment was everlasting happiness. He was already lucky to be able to obtain 3 treasures. Greed would bring about unexpected disasters. At that moment, as Fang Qingshan's greed was cut off, his mind became clear. Unknowingly, Fang Qingshan's state of mind took a huge step forward. What you lose at sunrise, you gain at sunset. This is a pleasant surprise. A faint joy rose in Fang Qingshan's heart. In fact, the reason for this was because Fang Qingshan placed too much importance on opportunities and treasures. As long as there was a chance, he would wish that the sky was higher and take everything. Although this was not too much of a problem, it was not good because it was already controlling his heart. What Fang Qingshan hoped for was to control his heart. As far as the eye could see, the entire secret vault was paved with chaos stones. Although this item could not be compared to the treasure division cliff and chaos bloodstones that Fang Qingshan had obtained, it was not inferior to Khanate pure gold, star essence, and bronze of first yang. One had to know that the overseas 3 immortal islands were formed from chaos fragments, and these chaos stones were the fragments that had shattered into pieces. On top of the chaos stones, there were star essences, mysterious yellow stones, sands of time, and space crystals. They were casually piled on top of the chaos stones like cabbages. They shone brightly and were scattered all over the place. Countless rare treasures completely covered the entire ground. They were densely packed and uncountable, but these were the most common items here. The most inconspicuous items. I feel the aura of reincarnation. In order to come to the Wu people's secret vault this time, Fang Qingshan had paid a great price, especially the Hongmeng immortal qi, which could create a primordial cardinal treasure or a primordial chaos saint. His goal was naturally to obtain the items of the reincarnation demon god, be it flesh, laws, or spiritual treasures, as long as they could help him cultivate the reincarnation law. Although there were all sorts of dazzling treasures, the moment he sensed the aura of reincarnation, his entire body trembled. His mind, spirit, and energy were instantly raised. Without any hesitation, he followed the traces of feeling and arrived at a central location. This was the core of the secret vault. Unlike the other normal treasures, these treasures were not scattered all over the ground and thrown away. Although there were many things that the shaman tribe could only put aside, they were still chaos spiritual treasures. There were hundreds of chaos stones piled up on the high platform, and there were all kinds of good things placed on it. There was the Shadow Demon God's companion spiritual treasure, the broken mid-grade Chaos spiritual treasure, the Dark Shadow Sword, half of the Guardian Demon God's body, which seemed to still be alive, and the Wind and Cloud laws that the Wind and Cloud Demon God had comprehended of course. Fang Qingshan's gaze fell on a high platform that emitted the aura of reincarnation at first glance. What a pity! Fang Qingshan was greatly disappointed when he saw the items on the high platform. This was because the harvest was too far for what he had expected. In Fang Qingshan's opinion, the items left behind by the reincarnation demon god should be on the same level as the life and death gourd. However, things did not turn out as he wished. There were 3 items on the high platform: the reincarnation demon god's flesh, laws, and spiritual treasures. However, none of them could be considered top-notch. The flesh was only a leg, and its laws were inferior to the Wind and Cloud demon god's laws, not in terms of quality, but in terms of quantity and completeness. The spiritual treasure had also completely shattered and turned into a primordial cardinal treasure, but it was still in a heavily damaged state. In fact, this situation was very normal. When the sky collapsed, the tall ones would be the first to hold it up. The reincarnation demon god was a top-notch demon god, on the same level as space-time, karma, and fate. He was second only to Pan-Gu, so it was natural that he would be targeted by Pan-Gu. When faced with Pan-Gu's targeting, the consequences were self-evident. Forget it. If it's fated, it's fated. If it's not fated, then don't force it. Fang Qingshan waved his hand and put away the flesh, laws, and spiritual treasures that belonged to the reincarnation demon god on the reincarnation platform. Although these things did not achieve the results that he had expected, they should be able to help him cultivate the reincarnation law in the early stages. As for how he should cultivate in the future, Fang Qingshan did not have a good idea. However, there would always be a way out, and there would always be a way out. At the very least, he still had the ruin market to trade, the timeless arc, and the celestial chessboard. He could travel to different worlds and find a way to improve the reincarnation law. I don't know whether Hutu will lend me the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation to study. Fang Qingshan did not get what he wanted from Pan-Gu's secret vault, so he set his eyes on Hutu's reincarnation power and the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation. However, this treasure was too important, and it was more important than the life and death book and the judge's pen. Fang Qingshan was not sure whether Hutu would lend it to him. After all, this treasure was too important to Hutu. If he lost it, he might lose control of the reincarnation. Forget it. I'll ask later. If I can borrow it, it will be a happy ending. If I can, it's fine. Fang Qingshan did not have the idea of letting Hutu borrow the treasure. After all, the treasure belonged to her, especially such a precious treasure. If he could lend it to her, it would be a favor. If not, it would be his duty. Shaking his head, Fang Qingshan tossed these sudden thoughts to the back of his mind. Just as he was about to continue choosing the other 2 treasures, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He seemed to have missed something just now, and it was something very important to him. So, Fang Qingshan stood still and recalled what he had just thought. How could I forget about this treasure? After a long while, Fang Qingshan suddenly patted his forehead, and his tone was full of regret and excitement. Just when he thought of the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation, Fang Qingshan suddenly remembered that in the reincarnation underworld, in addition to the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation, the life and death book, and the judge's pen, there was another treasure which was of great benefit to his understanding of the reincarnation law. It might be more valuable than the life and death book and the judge's pen. This treasure was called the Reincarnation Mirror, and it was the magic treasure of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, one of the 4 great bodhisattvas of Buddhism in the future. This treasure was somewhat similar to Qi Jingxi's future treasure, the Mirror of Yin-Yang. The Mirror of Reincarnation also had 2 sides. One was life, and the other was death. No matter if it was an immortal or a mortal, a golden immortal, or even a grand luo, if it was a primordial unity, or even a grand luo, even a grand luo's primordial spirit would immediately enter reincarnation if it was accidentally shown on the dead side. And anyone who was shown on the life side could not only solidify their soul and primordial spirit, but also eliminate the karma of the past. However, those who were not the owner of the treasure would lose their memories. It was a killing weapon comparable to Meng Po's soup. Chapter 1075. Reincarnation Mirror. It was a top-grade, connate numinous treasure that was comparable to the 5 element flags. It was also because of this numinous treasure that the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had helped the Buddhist sect establish a foothold in the underworld. He stood guard over the Een mountain and purified evil spirits, making a great vow that he would not become a Buddha until hell was empty. He became the leader of the 4 great bodhisattvas of Buddhism, an existence comparable to a top-notch Buddha. At this moment, he didn't know if Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had accepted Juanti as his master. However, even if he had, the mirror of samsara definitely hadn't fallen into his hands. If it fell into his hands, Fang Qingshan wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. After all, he was not Hongjun. As long as Fang Qingshan did not bully the weak and take things by force, he could directly exchange with him. Ksitigarbha and Juanti would not refuse him for a spirit treasure. Since the mirror of samsara had not fallen into the hands of the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, where was it now? Fang Qingshan thought for a moment and fixed his gaze on Mount Jihua. Although Mount Jihua was not as famous as Mount Wui, Mount Zhongnan, and Mount Putuo, it was still a famous paradise. It was the place where Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva attained enlightenment. If there was a place where the reincarnation mirror was most likely to be hidden, Fang Qingshan thought it was here. After I leave Pangu Palace, I'll go to Mount Jihua to take a look. Fang Qingshan thought to himself. As for the saying that numinous treasures could only be found if one was fated, this sentence was just for show. It wasn't that these words were wrong, but it shouldn't be taken as a standard. Heavenly materials and earthly treasures belonged to the virtuous. What was virtue? Did virtue mean that one would definitely get it? To put it bluntly, being virtuous and fated was just an opportunity that made it easier for you to obtain it. If 2 people met at the same time, and the other person was stronger than you, the so-called fate and virtue would not be of much use. Only if you were the protagonist, the son of destiny, could you turn misfortune into fortune and turn misfortune into fortune. Furthermore, even if there was no one else, if one was not strong enough, they might not even be able to take away the treasure. Therefore, at the end of the day, it all came down to strength. Just like Juanti, who shouted that this item was fated with him every day. It was unknown how many talents and spiritual creatures he had converted. What did he rely on? Fate? Virtuous? No, it was strength. Using the powerful law of karma, he forcefully accepted the karma of fate. As long as one's strength was not enough to break free from the shackles of his laws, then it was fate. Kang Xian was forcibly enlightened in this way. Of course, Fang Qingshan didn't have to go through so much trouble, because he and the reincarnation mirror might be predestined. Putting aside the fact that he had comprehended the law of reincarnation, he was fated with this treasure. Just the reincarnation demon god's law of flesh and blood and the numinous treasure in his possession were enough to form karma. Fang Qingshan had already guessed that the reincarnation mirror was probably a spiritual treasure evolved from the reincarnation demon god's flesh and blood law or companion spiritual treasure. That was to say, it had the same origin as the reincarnation mirror in Fang Qingshan's hands. Thinking of the reincarnation mirror, Fang Qingshan's thoughts diverged, and he thought of the 2 spirit treasures. It was rumored that the Queen Mother of the West had a treasure called the Kunlun Mirror, which had the ability to change time. The Jade Emperor Hao Yin had a treasure called the Hao Yin Mirror, which had the ability to see through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. These 2 spirit treasures also had the same origin as the reincarnation mirror. If he could combine them, he would get a primordial cardinal treasure. If that was the case, it meant that the reincarnation mirror, the Hao Yin mirror, and the Kunlun mirror were all transformed from the reincarnation demon god's spiritual treasure. If he could gather them together and combine them with the reincarnation mirror in Feng Qingshan's hands. Even if it couldn't recover its power at its peak, or even become a chaotic spiritual treasure, it could at least be like the God-Slayer in Hongjuan's hands. The law of reincarnation contained in it would be more comprehensive, and he could better comprehend the laws. Thinking of this, Feng Qingshan couldn't wait to go to Mount Jiuhua and Kunlun Mountain to get his hands on the two mirrors. As for the Haoyan mirror, he couldn't be too hasty. After all, the Celestial Emperor wasn't Haoyan, but Dijun Haoyan was just a guard boy by Hongjuan's side, and the Haoyan mirror wasn't in his hands. Therefore, he needed to wait. He thought that Hongjun wouldn't let him down. Although he had changed a lot for the sake of the so-called general trend and the complete control of the desolation, Hongjun Tiandao would definitely pull the general trend back to its original track. In other words, the liches and demons would definitely fight, and it was very likely that both sides would suffer. Once that happened, the heavenly court would definitely be empty. This also meant that Haoyan would still appear. With Haoyan, would the Haoyan mirror be far away? Of course, everything was still an illusion. However, with Feng Qingshan's abilities, as long as he didn't encounter any unforeseen circumstances and no one knew about it in advance, it would only be a matter of time before his plan was realized. Now, it was better to think about what he should choose from the other two spiritual treasures. Originally, Feng Qingshan thought that the thing left behind by the reincarnation demon god should be similar to the life and death gourd. Although it was broken, it didn't drop in grade. If it was nurtured by someone who cultivated the law of reincarnation or repaired by a heavenly treasure that contained reincarnation, it could still be restored. It was the same for the laws and the body. It might not be complete, but it would at least have more than 5 levels. That way, he could directly choose these 3 items and leave. But reality gave him a head-on blow. His body would barely have 5 levels, let alone a complete one. It was the same for the laws, only about 5% of what the reincarnation demon god controlled. As for the spiritual treasure, it was even worse. It had directly evolved into a connate treasure. Therefore, Feng Qingshan took the 3 spiritual treasures of the law of flesh and blood as one spiritual treasure, leaving him with 2 more to choose from. Although Dijiang said that as long as he didn't empty the treasury, he could take as much as he wanted. It was a tempting suggestion, but Feng Qingshan wasn't an insatiably greedy person. Moreover, this was different from robbing the Dragon Palace and the other treasure vaults. No matter how much he took, he would return it with interest in the future. Therefore, although Feng Qingshan would not rigidly limit himself to 3 spirit treasures, unless he was really tempted by them, he would at most extract 1 more source of the tree of Aleya's origin to prepare for the World Tree's clone. There was no such thing as the best, only the most suitable for him. Therefore, other than the reincarnation demon god's items, Feng Qingshan wanted to continue choosing. Obviously, he had to choose things that were beneficial to his cultivation or path. Feng Qingshan had 1 soul and 3 bodies. Other than his main body, he also had the World Tree clone and Mosquito Dauren. Obviously, he had to consider not only himself, but also the 2 of them. In addition, the Timeless Ark had already advanced to the supreme level and gained 5 eternal divine furnace units. But now, he hadn't filled up any of them. Therefore, he had to consider the supplementary spiritual treasures of the eternal divine furnace units. His main body had already obtained the reincarnation demon god's items. Other than the items that could help him perfect the Great Tao Green Lotus visualization painting, assist his cultivation, and help him condense the immortal substance, he basically had no other needs. Chapter 1076. There weren't many things that could help Feng Qingshan's cultivation. First, to help him perfect the Great Tao Green Lotus visualization diagram, he needed a visualization technique or a lotus spirit treasure. However, there were no cultivation techniques or lotus spirit treasures here. He could look for things that could help him condense immortal substances, but he didn't want to see if there were any similar auxiliary spiritual treasures. He didn't have much hope. After all, this kind of rare treasure was even rarer than chaos spiritual artifacts. Apart from the chaos demon god's flesh and blood, There was basically nothing else that could assist him in his cultivation. After all, there was only one spirit root of chaos, the tree of Alea. Not only that, it wasn't specifically used to aid in the cultivation of magic power, but it was used to improve one's perception. As for the flesh and blood of the Chaos Fiend Celestial, it was just like the dragon liver, phoenix gallbladder, tiger bone soup, rock wing, elephant trunk, and Chelan leg that they had just eaten. After refining and absorbing it, it would be greatly beneficial to body refinement. Therefore, he didn't need to think about the main body for now. As for the flesh and blood, he would leave it for the last step. As for the World Tree clone, he should find some supplementary items. After all, his main body had broken through to the mid-stage primordial chaos realm, and Mosquito Dowrin had also broken through to the primordial chaos realm. Only the World Tree clone, which had followed him since the beginning and had helped him a lot, had not been found yet. If he still couldn't keep up with his progress, he might not be far from being eliminated. There were a few ways to improve the World Tree clone. One of them was to devour the essence of countless spiritual roots. As for this place, Fong Qingshan roughly looked around and found that there was only one chaos spiritual root, the tree of Araya. In addition, since it was a tree, it naturally couldn't live without good soil and water. Although the World Tree was a top-notch connate spirit root that was no weaker than the peach of immortality or the five-needle pine, it still hadn't broken away from the shackles of a tree, nor did it have to. He could look around to see if there was any earth and water of a higher grade than the triple light divine water and the 9 heaven-living soil. If there was, it could speed up the growth of the World Tree. As for the last point, it was the World Tao that Fong Qingshan had once excluded. The reason why Fong Qingshan ruled out the World Tao was because it was too difficult to walk this path. World Tao, World Tao. Everything could be seen from the name. What was the world? Time and space, cause and effect, samsara, fate, wind and rain, thunder and lightning, day and night, for seasons, Zodion star, good and evil, yin and yang, hardness and softness. At the very least, it couldn't be a single one. Although you weren't required to be proficient in all of them, you had to at least comprehend a portion, master a portion, and completely control a portion. However, the comprehension of laws was not that simple. This was because the more laws one controlled, the more difficult it would be to comprehend. In the end, even the difficulty of comprehending a low-level law might not be lower than a top-level law. Therefore, if there was no need, or if there was no other way, no one would be willing to take this path. However, the World Tree clone was one of those who were born with no way to deal with it. Fortunately, although the World Tao was not easy, it was most suitable for him. Moreover, it was not that there was no way. There was still a shortcut. The simplest way was to follow Mosquito Doran's footsteps. Of course, what Mosquito Doran devoured was the origin power of the resources, and what the World Tree clone needed was the nomological power of the resources. From a certain point of view, origin and laws were the same thing. However, there were still some differences. This was because the origin power belonged to the heaven and earth and the chaotic spiritual energy, while the nomological power belonged to Hongjun Tiandao, the Great Tao. One Mosquito Doran had almost made Fong Qingshan bankrupt. If there was another World Tree clone, Fong Qingshan might as well not live anymore. This was because Mosquito Doran was not afraid of meat and vegetables. As long as he had the origin power, it would be fine. The World Tree clone still had to choose and train. If it devoured too many things of the same kind, there would not be much effect at all. Therefore, Fong Qingshan had never let the World Tree clone take this path. Other than the fact that he already had Mosquito Doran in the beginning and needed to gather resources, it was also because his potential was lower than Mosquito Doran's. However, now that Mosquito Doran had proven his Tao, the World Tree clone could consider walking on 3 legs. On one hand, it could continue to devour the spirit source while using more and better soil to nurture it. On the other hand, it could devour the natural laws of spiritual treasures and spiritual roots. Of course, it could also directly devour the Chaos Demon God's nomological power here. However, it would be too unsightly if you wanted to catch all of them in one go. Fortunately, Just like how Fang Qingshan extracted the origin power of the Alea tree, Fang Qingshan did not plan to take all of these chaos demon gods' nomological power. He only wanted to take some as a seed. With this as a foundation in the future, he could slowly make up for it and develop it. As for Mosquito Dowrin, what was suitable for him could start from the aspects of blood, killing, destruction, and devouring. However, the Blood Devil definitely did not have it. If there was a Blood Devil, when Hutu first visited the Blood Sea, he would not have taken out the life and death gourd, but the chaos blood gods accompanying spiritual treasure. As for killing, there would probably not be any results. This was because the accompanying spiritual treasure of the massacred demon god was the God Slayer. It was once in the hands of Ro, and now it was in the hands of Hongjun. Moreover, the remains of the massacred demon god were also obtained by Hongjun and combined with the God Slayer to repair the God Slayer. As for destruction, there would probably not be anything good. After all, he was also a top-level demon god, just like the reincarnation demon god. Even if there was something, it would probably not be satisfactory. Therefore, in the end, he could only see if there was anything left behind by the demon god devouring. Moreover, compared to the others, the demon god devouring's treasure was more useful to Mosquito Dowrin. After all, he had proven his Tao with the law of devouring. Other than that, the Timeless Ark's Eternal Divine Furnace unit could enhance the Timeless Ark itself. In any case, things that could enhance the foundation of the Timeless Ark were also very important. Now that the Timeless Ark had just advanced to the Supreme level, Fang Qingshan did not require him to advance to the Supreme level immediately. At least to the peak of the Supreme level, Fang Qingshan would be able to face Hongjun head-on and not be at a disadvantage. He would not have to rely on Yangmei like now. However, compared to himself, Mosquito Dowrin, and the World Tree clone, the Timeless Ark's needs needed to be more refined. Not to mention that there were not many things that could enhance the foundation of the Timeless Ark. Just the Eternal Divine Furnace unit alone not only needed the quality of the Spirit Treasure to be at least top-notch, or even Khanate Spirit Treasure, but could not be the kind that had exhausted its potential or had no special characteristics. However, this required Fang Qingshan to choose carefully. Obviously, ordinary spirit treasures and spirit roots could not enter Fang Qingshan's discerning eyes. Therefore, even if he wanted to choose, Fang Qingshan would only choose from the hundreds of treasures of the Chaos Demon God stored on the primordial Chaos Stone platform. This was because the treasures here were of high quality and they were all products of the Chaos Demon God. As for the others, they were collected by the Wu people later. Even if there were treasures in the universe, there would be very few. Moreover, Fang Qingshan did not only choose from the stone platform, but also looked at them first. After all, he still had to consider the World Tree clone and intercept a bit of the origin of the various treasures. Chapter 1077. Starting from a corner, Fang Qingshan was the first to see a spirit pearl that was shining with an aquamarine light. It was green and even had a faint fragrance. At first, Fang Qingshan did not pay attention to it. However, after a while, his expression changed. Unknowingly, Fang Qingshan's face had turned green. Without much time to think, he activated the dermic powers in his body and forced out the poison that had invaded his body. It turned out that this item was called the Poison Spirit Pearl. Although it was not the chaotic poison god's accompanying spiritual treasure, it was a spirit essence pearl condensed from his bone marrow and contained the poison origin Tao. If one was not at the mixed essence realm, one could be severely injured and on the verge of death in a short while. Even with Fang Qingshan's cultivation level, he had accidentally fallen for it in such a short while. If someone who cultivated the poison principle refined this item, not only could it strengthen the poison principle, but it could also greatly improve their cultivation level. If it was used to refine a treasure, it could also be used to refine a treasure of poison. Unfortunately, because the poison was too strong, it was not picked by Zhu Wu. However, this item was not of much use to him. It was not that he thought the poison was too strong like Wu people, but he did not cultivate the poison principle. If he used it, not only would he have to remove the poison, but he would also have to return to his origin. It was very troublesome. However, he still did not leave empty-handed. For the sake of the World Tree clone, he extracted a trace of the poison spirit pearl's origin power and sealed it. He would give it to the World Tree clone in the future to strengthen the poison principle of the Heaven and Earth Tao. Fang Qingshan shook his head and continued to look around. Fang Qingshan looked through the numinous treasures one by one. Regardless of whether they were useful or not, whether they caught his eye or not, Fang Qingshan extracted a stream of origin energy from each of them. Just like that, he walked and stopped occasionally. Before long, there was an additional pearl of the origin power in Fang Qingshan's hand. If the World Tree clone refined it, it would at least improve the World Tao a lot, even if it did not increase its cultivation level. Fang Qingshan sighed with emotion as he refined. Putting aside the chaos-level items, just the items that Wu people collected later on were all rare treasures that were rarely seen in the world. Even though Fang Qingshan had taken advantage of the Dragon Phoenix tribulation to loot the treasuries of many races, the treasures here were not inferior in any way. In fact, they were even better, allowing Fang Qingshan to make a fortune. If not for the fact that Zhu Wu had taken out all the primal chaos-level spirit treasures and placed them on the Chaos Stone platform, Fang Qingshan would have been overwhelmed and dizzy from picking through all the other spirit treasures. But even then, he was slightly indecisive, and he was unable to decide in the end. After all, not only could he only choose 2 out of the 100 treasures, but he could at most choose 1 or 2 more. He had already extracted the law origins of all the spiritual roots and spiritual treasures, so it would be too shameless of him to eat and take more. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan had made this choice with a purpose. First, it had to meet 2 conditions. It was suitable for the Timeless Arc, suitable for his main body, suitable for Mosquito Dowren, and suitable for the World Tree clone. Secondly, it had to be of a high enough grade. Based on this principle, Fang Qingshan did not make a choice immediately. Instead, he temporarily restrained all the items that met the requirements by his side and continued to search. When he really could not find the item that he needed the most, he would then choose and keep it as a spare tire. TSK, what a pity. Not to say that I entered a treasure mountain and returned empty-handed, but I can only watch as so many treasures don't belong to me. This feeling is simply terrible. The more he chose, the more Fang Qingshan could not help but sigh. This was because even though he had already drawn a circle, the number of spirit treasures that met the requirements still exceeded his imagination. He originally thought that it would at most be 2 or even less, but he did not expect that it would be more than double. This was why he sounded like he wanted to ransack the entire Wu people's treasure house. The dream butterfly, the incarnation of the great path of the Chaos Dream God, contained the inheritance of the great path of dreams. This item could be considered the most precious existence in the entire Wu people's treasure house. After all, the other chaotic bodies, chaotic laws, and chaotic spirit treasures were all incomplete and broken. This dream butterfly was not only complete, but it was also the inheritance of the great path. Compared to external things like spirit treasures and spirit roots, only the great path was fundamental. Obtaining flesh and laws could improve for a while. Obtaining spirit treasures could increase one's combat power, and only inheritance could allow one to climb step by step and have endless potential. The wishing pool, the accompanying spirit treasure of the Chaos Luck Goddess. This item was a little similar to a story that Fang Qingshan had heard before, the Woodcutter's Spring. According to the legend, there was a spring with a goddess in it. As long as one threw something into the spring, the goddess of the spring would take out something of the same, but higher grade, and ask if it was dropped in. If one told the truth, they would get the higher grade item, but if they lied, they would get nothing. It was the same for the wishing pool. As long as one paid an item and sincerely made a wish, the goddess of wishes would help them fulfill it. Of course, it was best not to make a ridiculous wish. For example, if a golden immortal wished to immediately obtain the power of Pangu, it would obviously fail 200% of the time. However, like the life and death gourd, this treasure had become broken due to the heaven-opening tribulation. Of course, because this item was a supplementary spirit treasure, it did not suffer that much damage. Not to mention the reincarnation mirror, it was even more complete than the life and death gourd. The truth nomological law was a part of the nomological law left behind by the chaos truth demon god. It was ranked as a high grade and was comparable to the 5 elements in yin and yang. Moreover, it was the most complete of all the nomological laws, with 10 to 20% of them. Cultivating this nomological law, one's words were the law, and their words were the law. Blood essence, a drop of chaos demon god's blood essence. Although some demon gods left behind their bodies, they might not be able to refine blood essence. The sky had the 3 lights, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and humans had the 3 treasures, essence, chi, and spirit. Blood essence was the core of essence. Pangu had died, and his Tao passed away, but his blood essence had only evolved into 12 Zuwus. Therefore, blood essence was very precious and rare. Those who did not temper their body would generally be able to condense 9 drops of blood essence. This drop of blood essence was the chaos lifeless sword demon's blood essence. Although it was not a massacre demon god, it was still considered a branch of the massacre Tao. This drop of blood was golden in color, and it contained ancient and mysterious Tao runes. A ferocious aura naturally spread out. Its entire body emitted a kind of ferocious aura that was very terrifying. Anyone who saw it could not help but feel a chill down their spine. Lifeless, 10 deaths without a chance of survival. As the saying went, there were 50 great Taos and 49 heavenly evolutions, leaving a chance of survival. It lacked one and was agile. However, the lifeless killing Tao went to the extreme. It extinguished all life and cut off a chance of survival. It was a sword of absolute death, but also an inauspicious sword. Of course, this was not its original name, but the name Fong Qingshan gave it. This was an unknown chaos wonderstone. The reason why it was called the Stone of Immortality was because Fong Qingshan discovered that this item had an auxiliary effect on condensing immortal substances. Chapter 1078. Although the immortal stone's immortal substance didn't have an immediate effect, it could still increase 1 or 2 levels of speed. This was already very rare. After all, there weren't many ways to condense immortal substances. The vast majority of people didn't even have a cultivation method. They were like ordinary monster race members without inheritances. They could only absorb heaven and earth's spiritual energy and the essence of the sun and moon. Just a single transformation would take hundreds or thousands of years. As for ordinary primordials, they didn't have any cultivation methods. If they wanted to condense a tiny bit of immortal substance, they could only rely on painstaking effort. Generally speaking, a single drop would take at least 10,000 years of hard work. However, with this item, he could save up to 1,000 years of time. Many a little makes a mickle, and if he added in the cultivation technique, it would be even more impressive. Apart from that, there was also the abyssal demon god's accompanying spiritual treasure, the abyssal altar. This object was the same as an ordinary altar, where one would offer something as a sacrifice and receive a reward. However, it was not an equivalent exchange, because what you gave was definitely less than what you received. One of the heads of the trifling demonic god was obtained by Fong Qingshan along with the thunderclap flag. The trifling sword, a top-notch Khanate spiritual treasure that he gave to 6-eared macaque, evolved from his Khanate spiritual treasure. The primordial unbreakable crystal was a body-refining supreme treasure. Even someone who had never tempered their body could become a body-refining genius by refining this item. Their physique would be constantly strengthened as they refined the crystal until the crystal was exhausted. If a body-tempering expert refined it, the effect would be even better. Even if a primordial chaos expert refined it, the effect would be obvious. An early-stage primordial chaos cultivator could directly advance by 2 levels. In other words, a first-stage primordial chaos cultivator could directly break through to the 3rd stage primordial chaos after refining it. A mid-stage primordial chaos cultivator could break through by half a level. As for late-stage primordial chaos cultivators, the effect was not so obvious. However, it could also increase the speed of cultivation. Sometimes, it wasn't a good thing to have too many good things. It was too hard to choose, from the shock and excitement at the beginning. After Fang Qingshan saw it, he didn't feel much. After seeing so many treasures, he was almost numb to them, especially when he had to choose one of them. He was even more conflicted. Fang Qingshan's eyes flickered, and a myriad of thoughts flashed through his mind. Weighing the pros and cons, he had to maximize his own benefits. What should I choose from the remaining 2 items? Out of more than 20 items that met the requirements, Fang Qingshan finally settled on 8. Butterfly Dream, Wishing Pool, Law of Truth, Lifeless Blood Essence, Immortal Stone, Abyss Altar, 3 Talents Head, or Primordial Chaos Unbreakable Crystal. I think that although the Butterfly Dream is the most valuable, under limited conditions, it should be eliminated first. After all, be it myself, Mosquito Dowrin, or the World Tree Avatar, none of them cultivated this path. Even if you obtain it, you won't be able to use it effectively. At most, you'll only be able to use it as a reference before shelving it. It's the same for the Law of Truth. As for the Lifeless Essence Blood, it's very beneficial to Mosquito Dowrin. Not only can it increase his comprehension of the Slaughter Law, but it can also help him temper his body. Moreover, because it's Essence Blood, it's also very beneficial to his Blood Dao. The Wishing Pool and the Abyss Altar have some overlapping effects. It's just that one is good while the other is evil. Both require one to pay a part in exchange for the other. If I have to choose, I'll definitely choose the Wishing Pool and not the Abyss Altar. Because in terms of completeness, the Wishing Pool is also better. As for the Tri-Talent Demonic God's Head, that's a problem. I want to choose it, but I also don't want to choose it. The head is one of the most important parts of the body and is very valuable. The Tri-Talent Demonic God is also a top existence among the high-level demonic gods. I don't want to choose it because I can't use it perfectly. Then I'll eliminate this item as well. All that's left is the Immortal Stone and Primordial Chaos Unbreakable Crystal. These 2 items are very beneficial to cultivation. The former can speed up the condensation of the immortal substance. It was too difficult to condense the immortal substance. Even though Fang Qingshan had the Great Path Green Lotus visualization painting, he was only slightly faster than those without a cultivation technique. Therefore, Fang Qingshan's heart was already leaning towards Lingxian. After all, the immortal substance was the key to whether or not he could successfully break through to the immortal realm in the future. On the other hand, the Primordial Chaos Unbreakable Crystal could speed up the breakthrough of his body-tempering realm, which was also very good. Fang Qingshan had already broken through to the mid-stage Primordial Chaos realm in the Qi Refinement realm, but his body-tempering realm was still at the 2nd stage Primordial Chaos realm. Although he had to choose his cultivation path, every path was broad and profound. If he chose all of them, he would definitely not have enough energy. However, if he wanted to walk steadily and go far, he could not slack off in the 3 paths of essence, Qi, and Spirit. He could not fall behind. It's just that Fang Qingshan picked and practiced, but in the end, he still exceeded the quota. If he chose all of them, he would have the Wishing Pool, the Lifeless Blood Essence, the Immortal Stone, and the Primordial Chaos Unbreakable Crystal. Including the items of the Reincarnation Demon God that he had obtained previously, he would have almost doubled the amount. Among them, the Wishing Pool was suitable for the Timeless Arc, and the Permitha Boat was a comprehensive Timeless Arkansas naturally. The integration of units would not only be offensive or defensive numinous treasures. Like the Eternal Military Camp, auxiliary numinous treasures like the Wishing Pool could also be used. As for the Lifeless Blood Essence, it could help Mosquito Dowrin in his cultivation. As for the rest of the items of the Reincarnation Demon God, the Immortal Stone could help Fang Qingshan speed up the condensation of the immortal substance, and the Primordial Chaos Unbreakable Crystal could help him improve his body-tempering realm. If Emperor Jiang had not given him a chance to choose, it would have been fine as long as he did not empty out everything. Otherwise, he really did not know how to choose. Although he felt a little embarrassed, Fang Qingshan did not hesitate at all and directly put the 4 treasures he had chosen into his pocket. He was already very virtuous for not ransacking the entire secret vault. With these items, I believe my cultivation base will be able to increase rapidly once more. Fang Qingshan thought in a good mood. This trip to the Pangu Palace was indeed fruitful. Although the items of the reincarnation demon god were somewhat disappointing, the other items filled the gap. Compared to the improvement of Fang Qingshan's main body, the Timeless Arc and Mosquito Dowrin, the World Tree clone's improvement would be even greater. This was because Fang Qingshan did not just choose the 5 treasures in the wishing pool. He also extracted all the spirit roots, spirit treasures, nomological laws, and the origin energy in the flesh and blood in the treasure vault. After subtracting the duplicates, the World Tree clone would definitely improve by leaps and bounds after refining it. If he could really find the World Tree Desolation Tree this time, he would probably be able to break through to the primordial chaos realm. I have already chosen. After getting what he wanted and exceeding his expectations, Fang Qingshan could be considered to have come and gone in high spirits. Whoosh! Just as Fang Qingshan made his decision, a mysterious and strange nomological power suddenly rose from the secret vault, and his entire body was involuntarily expelled. He was quickly teleported out. Chapter 1079. Just as Fang Qingshan was visiting the Wu people and entering the Pangu Palace to pick out treasures, several major events happened in the Desolation Hall. Needless to say, the culprit was a member of the demon race. Originally, after subduing the Penglai Island, the demons had set their next target on the Wu people. But things changed too quickly. Who knew that the Wu people, Hudu, had already become a sage and could defeat all the Hongjun Tiandao sages the moment she became a sage. At that time, they had to pray that the Wu people would not attack the demons, not to mention attack the Wu people. Fortunately, Daozu came forward and forbade the sages from participating in the war. This gave the demons a great advantage. If they attacked at this time, because the Wu people's divine beings' killing formation was incomplete without Hutu, they would definitely have an absolute advantage and have a 30% chance of winning. Unfortunately, before they could come up with a strategy, they were interrupted by a sudden change. This change was different from when Hutu became a sage, but it was a happy thing for the demons because Dijun and Shiha were finally pregnant. At this time, they naturally could not attack the Wu people. After all, Shiha was also one of the few masters of the demons. Even if they wanted to attack, Hutu would not agree. Although she was forbidden to participate in the great war of sorcery and demon, she was not completely helpless. If the demons wanted to take advantage of this, Hutu would definitely not care about the previous agreement with Hongjun. Apart from these, in order to create a perfect environment for Shiha to nourish the fetus and to completely digest the Penglai Island forces, strengthen their control over the 4 seas, and strengthen the foundation of the demons, Dijun did something big. Bathing the sun in the East Sea. Of course, bathing the sun in the East Sea did not mean sinking the sun into the East Sea to take a bath. Not to mention that he did not have the ability to do so. Even if he did, he would not dare to do it. After all, the sun was one of the 3 main stars in the Desolation starry sky. It was related to the light of the world and had a fixed orbit. Changing it at will could lead to unpredictable consequences. Just the desolation of the 10 golden crows had caused Luya and the others to be doomed eternally, causing the luck of the monster race to plummet. If the sun were to sink into the sea, water and fire would be incompatible. The resulting massacre would not even need the Wu people to do anything. Heaven's punishment would directly wipe out the entire demon race. The so-called sunbathing in the EC was actually a supreme treasure of the Gold Crow family. The desolation of the top-grade pre-world spirit root, Fuso tree, transplanted from the sun by Dijun and planted it on Penglai Island. After that, Dijun accompanied Shiha and stayed on Punlai Island to wait for the arrival of little Jinwu. As for the heavenly court, there was still Tai, Fushi, and Kuimping. Of course, although he lived in seclusion with Shiha on Punlai Island, he did not stay idle. The things that Tai and the others could not solve would be presented to him. At the same time, Jun continued to perfect the Jotian star matrix. After 49 years, the Golden Crow was finally born. Compared to Neza, who stayed in his mother's womb for 3 years, it was 46 years longer. Of course, the reason why the gap was so big was that Shiha was an expert at the late stage of Sage to Be. Ling Zhuzi's mother was immortal. Ling Zhuzi was not bad, being the reincarnation of a pre-world spirit treasure and used to follow Nuwa. However, Luya and the others could not be compared to Ling Zhuzi. His father was Jun, who was at the peak of Sage to Be. Moreover, Jun and Shiha were born with great opportunities and great luck. Therefore, the birth of Luya and the others was naturally extraordinary. Although it could not be compared to the heavenly marriage, the establishment of a religion, or the creation of a human being, it was still a big movement. Red light. Tens of thousands of feet of red clouds appeared in the void without warning. Countless flames flowed in the red clouds, shining with golden light. That was naturally the true fire of the sun, an existence that even Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals avoided like snakes and scorpions. A huge Fuso tree appeared in the red clouds, looking imposing. On the Fuso tree, a magnificent and noble bird's nest appeared. Judging by its aura, its grade was no lower than that of a top-grade pre-world spirit treasure. Ow! After the high-pitched cry of the golden crow, it seemed to cause a chain reaction. One after another, the cries of the golden crows sounded. One after another, the little golden crows flew out of the bird's nest. They spread their wings and bathed in the true fire of the sun. They looked especially domineering and noble, like the spirits of the world. 10 suns in the sky, their voices shook the sky. In the void, countless sacred beasts, divine beasts, and demons appeared and gathered around the 10 golden crows. They bowed to the golden crows respectfully. Thousands of demons bowed to them. Of course, these dragons, phoenixes, and Cheelants were not real. They were just visions that heaven and earth were celebrating. Not only that, but the sun in the desolation starry sky actually moved at this moment. It shot out a stream of power of origin that fell on the 10 golden crows. With the support of this power of origin, not only did the 10 golden crows foundation improve significantly, but they also instantly surpassed their infancy stage and entered the growth stage. For a moment, the temperature that was originally raised because of a strange phenomenon in the world rose sharply at this moment. A scorching heat swept across the sky and earth. In an instant, all living creatures felt a wave of unbearable heat. This was still a place far away from the East Sea. In the East Sea, within the range of Punlai Island, it was already unbearably hot. The seawater was boiling, the mountains were burning, and the seas were boiling. Those with weaker cultivation were even directly steamed and roasted. This was actually not surprising. After all, in the original trajectory, the reason why Kwa Fu chased the sun and Ho Yi shot the sun was because of the heat brought about by the 10 golden crows. Even ordinary Wu people could not withstand it and suffered heavy casualties. Although the 10 golden crows were not as hot as when they were in the desolation starry sky, they had just been born and were supported by the power of heaven and earth, so they were not that much weaker. Fortunately, they had just been born and did not know how to hide their auras. They did not know how terrifying karma was. But Jun and Shiha knew. As such, the two of them joined forces and used great spells to suppress the true fire of the sun that the 10 golden crows gave off. That aside, the beings in the desolation starry sky gaped at the birth of the 10 golden crows, the image of tens of thousands of beasts worshipping them, and the scene of the sun blessing them. With their foundation, they would at least have the foundation of Baizé and the other marshals when they grew up. They would not dare to say that they would surpass Jun and Tai, but it was not impossible. Even if they could not compare, they would still be considered top-notch. This was something that Luya who would become the Buddhist Mahavairokkana in the future, had achieved. He was not any weaker than the Kuan-pung, Mingi, and the others of the older generation. Great! Seeing this, Dijun, Shiha, Tai, and the others were overjoyed. The visions of the heavens were extraordinary. The birth of the 10 golden crows was a joyous event for the beasts. After all, the golden crows used to only have Dijun and Tai. Now, there were 10 more golden crows. That was why the sun's origin would bless them. After all, the birth of the 10 golden crows greatly strengthened the sun's origin. For the beasts, they did not place as much importance on having successors like the dynasties in the mortal world. Without successors, a kingdom would not be stable, but it was still an important symbol. Not to mention that the 10 golden crows were born extraordinary. Chapter 1080. Blessings were accompanied by misfortunes, and misfortunes were accompanied by blessings. Everything in the world had its limits, and there were good and bad things. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, it all depended on a single thought. Although the birth of the Golden Crow was a joyous occasion for the Demon Clan, and the luck of the Demon Clan had increased greatly because of it, it was also the fuse of disaster. To Hongjun, Hutu had proven her Tao and become a saint, and Hutu had become a king on her own. Disobeying orders was clearly out of his control, and this was intolerable. However, if he were to take action, the movement would be too big, and it would be like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. But obviously, it was impossible to ignore it. Not only did he have to take action, but he had to be fast, accurate, and ruthless. Not only did he have to hit Hutu in Hutu's weak spot, but he also had to be swift and unexpected, catching her off guard. And this required the Demon Clan to exert their subjective initiative. Now that Hutu and Yuwa could not participate in the battle, and the Wu people's Divine Fiend formation was incomplete, the Demon Clan still had the Zodion Star formation. With the birth of the 10 Golden Crows, the luck of the Demon Clan had increased greatly, and it was the best time to take action. With a thought, the entire heavenly design of the desolation was instantly thrown into chaos. Although Hongjun did not take action himself, his movement seemed to have sent a signal. This was especially so for Junyi, Sanqing, Ro, and the others. Now that the sorcerer and demon clans were powerful, if they did not decline, no one would be able to step onto the stage of the desolation. The human clan could not do it, the demon clan could not do it, the sages could not do it, and the demon ancestors could not do it. At their level of cultivation, ordinary meditation, and spiritual travel were just a matter of time. If they wanted to improve their cultivation, they could only do so with time. There were only 2 ways to improve one's cultivation quickly. One was to find a lucky chance, like the primordial unbreakable crystal that Feng Qingshan had obtained from the secret vault of the Wu people. However, such a lucky chance was hard to come by in the entire desolation. Unless one left the desolation and traveled the myriad realms, it was only possible to stumble upon it by accident. This was also why after the desolation had settled down, many sages had sent their doppelgangers to leave the desolation and travel the world. One reason was to increase their knowledge, and the other was to find a lucky chance to break through their cultivation. But now, the great tribulation of desolation was imminent. It was clearly not a good time to leave. As for the second method, it was to add karmic luck to one's body. As the saying went, when the time came, heaven and earth would help one. As long as one's karmic luck was strong enough, one's cultivation speed and comprehension would increase. This method was much easier than the first one. As long as both the sorcerer and demon clans were injured and the human clan rose, they would have the opportunity to control the world and fight for karmic luck. It turned out that in the trajectory, when the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors ruled the world, the disciples of the 3 schools of Xianmen came out to help. Therefore, for their own interests, Sanqing, Junyi, and Ro all moved at the same time, fishing in troubled waters, winning in the chaos. In order to be more beneficial to their own actions, the first thing they did was to add fuel to the fire after Hongjun messed up the heavenly secrets. Sanqing's Tai Chi diagram Pangu's banner, the celestial slaying sword formation, the Bodhi tree of Buddhism, the 12th grade golden lotus, and the ancient demon gate of heavens beyond all rioted at the same time, making the already chaotic heavenly secrets even more chaotic. At this moment, not even the sages could read the heavenly secrets, let alone the sorcerer and demon clans. Even Hongjun Tiandao found it difficult to calculate the heavenly secrets. After the birth of the 10 golden crows, Dijun and Shiha accompanied them for a while and also recuperated for a while. When Shiha had completely recovered her cultivation level, which had dropped due to pregnancy, the two returned to the heavenly court. After all, a country could not be without a ruler, and a family could not be without a leader. Although Tai and Fushi were in charge, it was still not stable. Especially at this critical moment in the great sorcerer and demon war, Dijun naturally could not let his guard down. As for the 10 golden crows, they naturally stayed on Penglai Island. After all, they still could not restrain the true fire of the sun. Once they came out, the drought demon would be born, and the land would be barren for thousands of miles. Of course, it was impressive, but the evil karma would be too much. Not only would it be bad for the demon race, but it would also be bad for the 10 golden crows themselves. The death of the 10 golden crows and the inability of Liu Ye to surpass Di Jun and Tai probably had something to do with the 10 suns in the sky. Moreover, although they had skipped the infancy stage and entered the growth stage thanks to the sun star's blessing, their cultivation was still lacking compared to the average demon immortals, let alone Di Jun and the others. They would not be of much help if they went out. Therefore, the 10 golden crows were left on Penglai Island to cultivate. They could only leave the mountain when they mastered the true fire of the sun and broke through to the zenith heaven realm. As for safety, Dijun was not too worried. After all, Penglai Island itself was formed from chaotic shards. It was a natural formation, and it had been run by Tung Wang Kung for many years. Ordinary demi-saints would not be able to return if they entered. Most importantly, the island was guarded by an expert of the Golden Crow's solar lineage, the mulberry tree. As one of the 10 great connate spirit roots of the desolation world, the mulberry tree had the best fate after the Bodhi tree, even though it had yet to transform. The yellow middle plum had yet to develop sentience, so it ended up in Laozi's hands and became the main ingredient for refining the 9 transformations golden pill. The moon osmanthus shared weal and woe with the lunar star, but it could neither transform nor move. The ginseng fruit and Xinyuanzi were bound together, becoming his 3 corpses. As for the others, they were in a worse state. The jade pool had split the peaches of immortality into 3 parts. The 3,000-year-old, 6,000-year-old, and 9,000-year-old peaches had weakened a top-notch connate spirit root into an ordinary one. The bitter bamboo had been refined into a top-notch connate spirit treasure, the bamboo of purity, while the calabash vine had been dismembered. Only the mulberry tree had yet to transform, but like the giant turtle in the North Sea, it had embarked on the path of a demon god. Thanks to the providence of Dijun, Tai, and the sun star, he was almost unscathed. His cultivation was no less than Dijun's, and he could be considered one of the demon race's concealment methods. From Dijun's point of view, the safety of the 10 golden crows would not be a problem with the protective array of Penglai Island and the mulberry tree. However, he had never expected that a sage would be so shameless as to personally deal with or plot against the 10 golden crows. At this moment, the heavenly secrets were in a mess, and no one could predict anything. Moreover, everyone's attention was on the witch and demon races, or Hongjun Tiandao, and Fong Qingshan of the Blood Sea. No one would pay attention to the Western duo, who had no sense of presence among the sages. At this time, Junti had quietly left Spirited Mountain, and no one had noticed. After leaving the West, Junti quietly came to the East Sea. As one of the 3 celestial islands, if Penglai Island had not come into being, even a sage would not have been able to predict its specific location. Since it had come into being, it would be too easy for Junti to find it. Not long after, Junti arrived at the periphery of Penglai Island. What a great Penglai Island! It's even better than Mount Meru. Juni walked around Penglai Island and exclaimed. At the same time, he was envious. Chapter 1081. The barrenness of the West had always been a pain in Junti's heart. It had almost become a demon in their hearts. This was why Juni was so shameless and crazy that he took everything. The 1 meter higher sky bullied the weak. Their current trajectory was a little better than before. With Hong Jun Tiandao's instruction to repair the West's ancestral veins, the two had the blessing of fate and merit, and their cultivation had greatly improved. However, it was not much better. After all, to repair the ancestral veins, not only did one need cultivation, they also needed resources. Although it was the ancient desolation and resources were good in other places, there was a huge shortage in the West. In order to repair the ancestral veins, the already poor West became even poorer. The financial deficit was shocking. Therefore, when Juni saw a top-level paradise like Penglai Island, he couldn't help but feel jealous. If not for the fact that he had calculated that this island had other karma and did not completely belong to the demon clan, he would have already begun to plan how to take this island for his own use after the Great Shaman-Demon War. After a while, Juni had a better understanding of the array of Penglai Island. This array was indeed exquisite. No wonder it was the protective array of Penglai Island. It had also been repaired by Tung Wong Kong. If it was someone with the same cultivation as Juni, it would be impossible to break through the array in a short amount of time without alerting others. Fortunately, Juni's array level was not good, but his cultivation was okay. Though he was at the bottom of all the saints, he was still a saint, wasn't he? In order not to alert the enemy, Junti first used the 12th rank Golden Lotus of Virtue to completely cover Penglai Island. This way, no matter how big the commotion was, it wouldn't alert others. Plus, with the chaotic nature, even if Di Jun came here on a whim, he wouldn't be able to sense this place in a short amount of time. In reality, what Juni didn't know was that ever since he came to the East Sea, he had alerted Yang Mei and Hong Jun Tiandao on Green Willow Island. Hong Jun was easy to deal with. He already knew that the 10 Golden Crows would be the fuse for the great war of sorcerers and demons, so he had been keeping an eye on them. Although Yang Mei did not regard the East Sea as his base camp, he would not allow others to sleep beside his bed. It was fine if it was others, but the arrival of a primordial chaos saint like Junti in the East Sea naturally alarmed him. Junti was completely unaware that he had already alerted the enemy. Or perhaps he knew, but he was certain that the other party would ignore him. Therefore, he set up everything on Penglai Island. Just as he had expected, Hong Jun and Yang Mei did not pay any attention to him until he broke the formation of Penglai Island and suppressed the Fuso tree. Actually, this was very normal. Hong Jun was eager for someone to start the great war of sorcerers and demons. After all, this kind of thing also had karma. As for Hong Jun Tiandao, it was better for him to sit back and watch. At the last moment, he would sweep away the fallen leaves and clean up the mess. As for Yang Mei, it was naturally none of his business, as long as Hong Jun did not cause trouble for him. Or, as Fang Qingshan had come to the alliance, he would not care about anything else. Right now, he was wholeheartedly focused on recovering from his injuries and comprehending the eternal aura. Back to Penglai Island. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 years had passed since the birth of the 10 Golden Crows. Although 100 years might be the time of a nap, for cultivators, it was already a very long time. For the 10 Golden Crows, it was already a very long time. Although they were born extraordinary, they were still new at the end of the day, and their minds were still that of children. It was fine to cultivate for a short period of time, but after cultivating for a long period of time, they could not help but yearn for the outside world. In particular, Penglai Island was a top-blessed enclave. With the blessing of the Fuso tree, it could be said that the cultivation of the 10 Golden Crows was like adding wings to a tiger. In just a short 100 years, they had gone through thousands or even tens of thousands of years. After continuous hard work, their cultivation had all broken through to the primordial unity, golden, immortal level. But it was also because of this that the 10 Golden Crows could not stand being trapped in a small world. They were constantly thinking about how to get out. Unfortunately, Penglai Island not only had the Fuso tree, but also a protective formation. With their strength, even if the Fuso tree wanted them to leave, they would not be able to leave Penglai Island. On this day, after the 10 golden crows cultivated as usual, they began to feel restless again. However, before they could entangle the Fuso tree, Penglai Island suddenly shook. Who dares to be so presumptuous on Penglai Island? Boom! With a loud noise, the Fuso tree showed its true form, blocking out the sun and the sky. A majestic aura swept out, and the real fire of the sun filled the air. Without treasures, even Dijun, Tai could not compare. Unfortunately, the one he encountered was Zhuanti, a saint of origin. Even though Zhuanti was at the bottom of the saints, he was still a saint. The difference between him and a sage-to-be was like the difference between a bright moon and a firefly. Never mind the Fuso tree. Even Tai, who was known as the first person below the saints and had the Bell of Chaos, could not fight against Zhuanti. Therefore, in just a moment, the Fuso tree was suppressed. Fortunately, Zhuanti did not hurt the Fuso tree, seeing that they were also part of the top 10 primordial spiritual roots of desolation. He only suppressed and sealed it. For the time being, at least during the Golden Crow's desolation or the War of Sorcery and Demon, the Fuso tree would not be able to come out. What's wrong? What happened? Is someone attacking Penglai Island? Third uncle, are you there? What's going on? The fight between Zhuanti and the Fuso tree was too fast. In the blink of an eye, the dust settled. With the 10 Golden Crows' level of training, they naturally could not see anything wrong. They only felt that Penglai Island shook and the Fuso tree exploded. After that, they had no idea what happened. When they came back to their senses, they realized that everything had calmed down. Even though they did not know what happened, the 10 Golden Crows could not help but be alarmed. They quickly asked the Fuso tree, "It's nothing. It's just that Wu People's people attacked Penglai Island. I've defeated them." The Fuso tree's voice was heard. Of course, this was not the Fuso tree's voice. It was Zhuanti's imitation. What? Wu people? How dare they? The puny Wu people attacked Penglai Island. They must be tired of living. Third uncle, is he dead? I'm going to grind his bones to dust. The Wu people are so arrogant. If we don't get revenge, won't we look like we can be bullied? Why don't we go and teach them a lesson? The 10 Golden Crows' angry voices paused. They seemed to have thought of something. They looked at each other and said in unison, "Yes, we must teach them a lesson. Third uncle, let us go out of the island. Moreover, if we want to restrain the solar fire, we might as well vent it. That way, we can control our power faster." "Fine. If that's the case, let's do it." The Fuso tree seemed to have no other choice but to compromise with the 10 crows. "Go ahead. I'll go with you." "Thank you, third uncle." Hearing that the Fuso tree finally agreed, the 10 Golden Crows almost jumped in joy. Chapter 1082. The 10 Golden Crows found it strange that Fusong's third uncle had agreed to their request so easily this time, as the Golden Crows had refused no matter how much they begged in the past. But the onlookers had a clear view of the situation. Even if they thought about it, they wouldn't understand. Even Dijun and the others didn't expect a saint to plot against a few newborn children, let alone the Golden Crows. Plus, the 10 Golden Crows were already overwhelmed by the joy of leaving the island. They didn't think about anything else. After all, in their minds, Fusong was the most powerful being after Dijun. Therefore, even though it was strange, the 10 Golden Crows didn't suspect anything. At the same time, as if they were afraid that the Fuso tree would regret it and go back on its word, the 10 Golden Crows rushed out of Penglai Island at lightning speed. At this moment, the birds could fly freely in the sky, and the fish could swim freely in the sea. Only then could they let themselves go, and their excitement exploded uncontrollably. "Ha ha, we're finally out. Yes, the sky outside is so vast. Let's go to the Desolation Continent and the Wu people." After leaving Penglai Island, the 10 Golden Crows circled above the East Sea for a while to vent their excitement. Then, they flew toward the Desolation continent in high spirits. Immediately, 10 golden rainbows filled the sky. That was the rainbow transformation technique. A wave of heat swept across the world. The entire East Sea was in trouble. A large number of living creatures died, and millions of corpses floated on the surface of the sea. The 10 golden crows didn't care at all. Not to mention the fact that they did not have the concept of good and evil in their hearts and did not know the dangers of karma. They did not even pay attention to the living beings who had been implicated by them. Their only thought was to be wild horses that had broken free and teach the shamans a lesson. They wanted to show Dijun, Shiha, and the others what they were capable of. The catastrophe has begun. The sins of heaven can be forgiven, but the sins of one's own can't be avoided. The dragons and phoenixes have fallen. Now it's the shamans and demons' turn. The golden crow had caused such a huge commotion. Other places might not have known about it due to the mysteries of the heavens, but it was clearly impossible to hide it from the dragon tribe. However, they did not do anything to stop it. Firstly, the dragon tribe was trying to protect themselves. They did not even have the time to hide. So how could they be willing to interfere? They were afraid that they would be dragged into the cultivation tribulation if they were not careful. The dragon tribe had almost been wiped out last time. Even though the Azure Dragon Sacred Beast was protecting the dragon tribe, it was not as good as it used to be. Thus, they did not dare to take the risk again. Moreover, even if they wanted to, they would not be able to do so. As soon as they thought of informing Dijun Tai, they would immediately sense a great power's malice. This power was so strong that they had no ability to resist at all. There was no way they could survive. Besides, as the saying goes, when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. If the liches were to decline, it would be an opportunity for the dragon race and the other races. As for the creatures of the East Sea who died because of the golden crows, they didn't care at all. They weren't the direct descendants of the dragon tribe. Moreover, their deaths would cause a huge amount of negative karma, which could be used to attack the demon tribe. Why not? As the 10 golden crows left the East Sea and entered the Desolation Sea, far away in the heavenly court, Dijun, who was making final preparations for the great war of the liches and demons, suddenly frowned. He felt a sudden impulse. He vaguely felt that dark clouds were looming over him, as if something bad was about to happen. His discussion with Tai, Fushi, and the Kuanpung suddenly stopped. Dijun's strange behavior did not escape the eyes of everyone present. Fushi and the others looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. However, judging from Dijun's expression, it was clearly not something good. Tai asked right away, "Big brother, what happened?" Dijun shook his head and said, "I don't know the specifics. But my mind is warning me that something bad has happened recently." Something bad has happened? Tai and the others felt their hearts tighten when they heard that. At their level of cultivation, they couldn't let their guard down in the slightest, because it was very likely that these warnings were things that were about to happen. They could not let their guard down at all, especially at a crucial time like the Great War of the Liches and Demons. Could it be that something unexpected has happened to the sorcerer tribe? Tai, Fushi, the Kuanpung, and the others had their guesses. They immediately began calculating, but unfortunately, they found nothing. Instantly, the few of them frowned. "Don't waste your energy." Dijun shook his head and said helplessly, "The great calamity is about to happen. The secrets of the heavens are in chaos. All divination methods have lost their effect." Even when he used the Book of Aluo and the River Diagram, 2 top primordial treasures of divination, to derive the secrets of the heavens, he only found that the clouds were shrouded in fog. He could not find anything, so he could only give up. There was no need to mention Tai and the others. "Forget it. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. Since the saints can't do anything, no matter what Wu people do, the demons have nothing to be afraid of in the world." Seeing that he could not divine anything, Dijun could only give up. However, he was not too worried. As he said, as long as the saints and primordial chaos immortals did not take action, even if the Wu people attacked, the demons would still have the upper hand. Tai and the others immediately felt relieved after hearing what Dijun said. For a moment, they had the same idea as Dijun. They should first discuss how to deal with the Wu people and how to achieve the greatest results and minimize their losses. As for what happened earlier, they temporarily put it to the back of their minds. It was because of this that the 10 Golden Crows lost their last bit of life. The bloodline of the Golden Crows was almost wiped out. Dijun and the others were alarmed by the 10 Golden Crows' departure from Penglai Island. Although the 10 Golden Crows only wanted to kill the Wu people, they did not know how to restrain the true fire of the sun. Along the way, they did not kill people, but many people died because of them. Many races were affected, including the demons. After all, although the demons occupied the heavenly court and the Wu people controlled the sky and the earth, there were still many demons on the Desolation continent. After all, the demon scope was too wide. Any living creature that had developed spiritual intelligence could belong to the demons. Everywhere the 10 Golden Crows passed turned into a sea of fire. Without great magic or top-grade water-type spirit treasures, it was impossible to extinguish these flames. After all, this was the true fire of the sun, the top spiritual fire in the Desolation continent. In the journey to the west, Red Boy had only controlled a little bit of the true fire of Samadhi, but it had already made Monkey Sun feel like dying. Now, the 10 Golden Crows' cultivation was far above Red Boy's. They were not weaker than Monkey Sun, and the true fire of the sun was even stronger than the true fire of Samadhi. The impact was naturally several times, dozens or even hundreds of times greater than the true fire of Samadhi. Chapter 1083. For the Golden Crows, 10 suns in the sky was just a normal patrol. However, for the living beings on the land of desolation, it was a great calamity. True fire raged in the sky, and the land dried up. Countless living beings wailed and fled in the sea of fire. They rolled back and forth on the ground, trying in vain to extinguish the flames on their bodies. Unfortunately, it was all in vain. In the end, they could only be burned to ashes. Although there were many races on the land of desolation, there were almost no major races apart from the Wu people. It was not that there were no major races. However, these races had either moved to the 33 skies or moved to the Blessed Enclave. With the protection of the Great Array, they were spared from this calamity. Without major races and strength, they could only stretch out their necks and wait to be slaughtered. This was the survival of the fittest. Those who were not fit and did not have the strength could only be eliminated. The other races could only cry and wail, but the Wu people did not have to. The 10 Golden Crows, in particular, would rush over and start a massacre whenever they saw a tribe of the Wu people, especially when they saw the sorcerer tribe struggling in the true fire of the sun, cursing and cursing, but they could only watch helplessly as they walked towards destruction. They could not do anything to them. The hearts of the 10 Golden Crows thumped loudly, and this made them even more excited. As the saying went, one could not avoid getting their shoes wet if they often walked by the river. The 10 Golden Crows' wanton massacre finally attracted the attention of the Wu people. As a major race like the Wu people, once they got serious, any random person they sent over would not be a match for the 10 Golden Crows. After the 10 Golden Crows massacred another tribe of the Wu people, they were caught by a great sorcerer who had rushed over to provide support. What a scoundrel! How dare you be so arrogant and bully the Wu people? Looking at the tragic scene before them, a voice that resounded through the 9 heavens suddenly roared furiously. Following that, a sturdy figure approached from afar. Before the voice had finished, the figure had already arrived in front of them. He saw 2 yellow snakes hanging from his ears and 2 yellow snakes in his hands. Golden Crows? 10 Golden Crows? Ah, good. The person who came was the famous great witch Kwafu of the Wu people. Although he could not be compared to Ho, Yi, and Xing Tian, he was still a famous person who was on par with Xiang Lu and Jiufeng. With the cultivation of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, he could fight against the early stage of Sage to Be and was not weaker than the 10 great demon marshals of the demon race. The Wu people had 12 Zhu Wus in order to occupy the Desolation continent as much as possible. Therefore, the 12 Zhu Wu each chose a direction to expand their territory and suppress a region. Quafu was the Grand Magus of Zhu Wu's branch of the Wood God, and he guarded the east. The arrival of the 10 golden crows from the East Sea naturally alarmed the Gomong tribe. When Quafu received the news that someone was wantonly killing the sons of the Wu people, he was naturally furious and rushed to the scene of the incident. Seeing the blood of his clansmen forming rivers on the ground and the screams of pain, he was originally seething with anger. But when he saw the 10 golden crows soaring in the sky, his eyes widened like copper bells. Although he had never seen the 10 golden crows, he had seen the true form of Dijun's Tai during the Great Sorcerer and Demon War. A few years ago, the birth of the 10 golden crows had caused a great commotion, and Quafu had naturally heard about it. Combining the two, how could he not know the identity of the demons in front of him? Although the 10 golden crows had killed many of the sons of the Wu people's tribes, and Quafu wanted nothing more than to eat their flesh and sleep on their skin, he was very excited at this moment. This was because the 10 golden crows had an extraordinary identity. Although they were not as important as the 10 demon marshals of the demon race, their status was a notch higher, second only to the 1 emperor, 3 sovereigns, and 1 master of the demon race. If they were killed, not only would it deal a blow to the arrogance of the demon race, but it would also boost the prestige of the Wu people. As for whether the 10 golden crows would escape, Quafu did not care at all. This was because the 10 golden crows had not been born for long, and he had already determined from their aura that the 10 golden crows were only primordial unity golden immortals. With such a cultivation base, Quafu did not care even if they had the trump cards that Dijun and Shiha had left for them. With his skills, it would be a piece of cake for him to take care of them. As the saying goes, newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. I didn't expect you to appear in the territory of the Wu people. This is a heaven-sent opportunity. Today, I, Quafu, will use your blood to pay tribute to the sons of the Wu people who have died. Kill! Quafu shouted angrily as he spoke. With a flip of his hand, he took out his weapon, a peachwood staff, and struck at the 10 golden crows. Quafu! Oh no, that's the great sorcerer of the Wu people. His cultivation base has reached the peak of the Zenith Heaven realm, and he can even defeat a sage-to-be. We're no match for him. Let's go. The 10 golden crows had a bad feeling when they saw Quafu because they could sense a strong threat from him. Hearing him introduce himself, his expression changed madly, and he was horrified. While they lived on Penglai Island and had never left the world, they had heard about the Wu people from the Fuso tree, especially the famous experts. Aside from the 12 Zhu Wu, there were the great sorcerers under their command, such as Xing Tian, Ho Yi, Qi Yu, Master of Rain, Count of the Wind, and Quafu. While they were conceited, they knew the difference between them and a peak Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, especially a great sorcerer who could defeat a sage-to-be. Therefore, when Quafu made his move, the 10 golden crows fled without a second thought. Among the desolation, the rock race's Fuyao was famous for its speed. As the saying went, the rock rose with the wind and soared for 90,000 miles. With Sun Wukong's somersault cloud, one somersault could cover 10,000 miles. There was the golden light technique, one of the celestial 36 transformations. There was the rainbow transformation technique, unique to the golden crows. There was also Emperor Zhong's spatial technique, which allowed him to cover 240,000 miles with a single flap of his wings. While the 10 golden crows' cultivation levels were not high, their techniques were innate and almost instinctive. On the other hand, due to the fact that the Wu tribe cultivated their bodies and the influence of the malevolent earth Qi, other than Dijiang and Hutu, who were fast, the other tribes were weak in terms of speed. As a great shaman of Gomong's lineage, Quafu was naturally not fast. Therefore, when the golden crows fled, Quafu had no choice but to follow them from afar. Big brother, are we going to run away just like that? Yes, we told third uncle that we were going to teach the Wu people a lesson. Now, a mere great sorcerer is asking us to run away? Also, this is our first time fighting. If we return in defeat, it will damage our reputation. Seeing that Kwa Fu was not fast enough, the fear in the 10 golden crows lessened. When they came back to their senses, they chattered nonstop. Then what should we do? Go back and fight? The big golden crow rolled his eyes and said gloomily, "That's right. But we only have the cultivation of primordial unity golden immortals. They have the combat power of a peak zenith heaven or even a sage to be. We will only be courting death if we go back." Chapter 1084. Big Brother. Have you forgotten that third uncle is hiding in the dark to protect us? Even if we can't win, we won't be in any danger. Luya said, how did I forget that? The golden crow's eyes lit up when he heard that. He recalled what the Fuso tree said when they left Punglai Island and felt relieved. He had already made up his mind. What do you guys think? Although he had already made up his mind, the golden crow did not make a decision right away. Instead, he gathered everyone's opinions. That's right. How could we forget that third uncle is still hiding in the dark? Since third uncle is here, we can give it our all. Since our lives are not in danger, how can we retreat without fighting? The morale of the 10 golden crows soared after knowing that their safety had increased. All right, since everyone thinks so, let's go back and meet the great wizard Kwafu of the Wu people. The golden crow made the final decision when he saw that the morale was high. However, although third uncle is hiding in the dark, he definitely wants to train us. He won't make a move unless it's a life and death situation. So we still have to rely on ourselves. After all, there's still a huge gap between us and the great wizard. So we should avoid a head-on confrontation. Avoid his attacks and attack his vitals. I think we should play to our strengths and avoid our weaknesses. We should make use of our advantage in speed to drag him down. The 10 golden crows naturally acted according to the plan after coming up with a plan. Why aren't you flying anymore? Are you going to surrender or make a last-ditch struggle? Just as the 10 golden crows were acting according to the plan, Kwafu, who was chasing after them, saw them stop. He thought that the 10 golden crows were too weak and could not help but mock them. Surrender and make a last-ditch struggle? You? Luya sneered. You're a great wizard at the peak of the Zenith Heaven realm with the combat strength of a sage to be. Yet, you can't even take down 10 primordial unity golden immortals after such a long time. You're courting death. Kwafu roared and swung the peachwood staff in his hand. The staff instantly turned into a huge pillar that stood between the heavens and the earth. There were countless ancient runes carved on it, and a strange power spread out, instantly locking onto the sky where the 10 golden crows were. It was as if they had been forcibly restrained. At the same time, the entire space rapidly lost its vitality, becoming barren. As a member of Zhu Wu's lineage, Kwafu was naturally most proficient in the laws of wood. As for the law of wood, it was mainly used for binding and healing. It didn't seem to be very strong in terms of attack, but little did they know that when things reached an extreme, they would be reversed. Its attack power was not necessarily weaker than metal and fire. Just like now, Kwafu's divine ability seemed to have frozen the space, trapping the 10 golden crows in midair and depriving them of their vitality. If he didn't have a countermeasure, he would definitely be at a disadvantage in such a situation. Damn it, as the saying goes, seeing once is better than hearing 100 times. If he didn't personally experience it, he would never know the specifics. Under Kwafu's all-out attack, the expressions of the 10 golden crows changed drastically. Their hearts were in turmoil. They knew that if Kwafu's staff really hit them, they would definitely die. They originally wanted to drag out Kwafu until he died, but they didn't expect that they would be in danger because of a moment of carelessness. If they weren't careful, they would definitely die before they could succeed. Form the Great Golden Crow Array. Fortunately, the 10 golden crows were not easy to deal with. As the big golden crow shouted, the 10 golden crows moved at the same time. They each took a position and got into the array. In an instant, they started to move in a mysterious way. Boom! A strong, overbearing, and scorching aura exploded. The 10 golden crows' origins started to merge. Many ancient golden patterns flew out and intertwined with each other, evolving into a brand new and even more powerful golden crow. Many golden flowers formed from the true fire of the sun, looked as if they were cast from gold. The void distorted and sealed all directions. An astonishing power was rapidly condensing. 10 sun sky, refining array. This was a great array given by the origin of the sun after the 10 golden crows were born. It was a natural array. Although it wasn't as powerful as the 3 ultimate arrays of the Desolation Array, it wasn't any weaker than the Yellow River Array of the 9 Bends. It was even more powerful when used by the 10 golden crows. Boom! In the next moment, Kwafu's peachwood staff collided heavily with the 10 sun sky, refining array. Rumble. At the instant of the collision, the heavens and earth seemed to have frozen. Everything was silent, and light and darkness fluctuated. Unexpectedly, there wasn't a single loud sound. From the looks of it, it was as though even sound had been devoured by the terrifying collision. Great sounds were silent, and great elephants were silent. The enormous peachwood staff collided with the scorching golden crow. In the space where they collided, the two forces frantically eroded and destroyed each other. For a moment, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The air was filled with a bitter smell. One could tell the whole picture from a single glance. The terror of the two forces was evident. When the corrosion reached a certain limit, they could no longer maintain their calm. Thus, a terrifying storm violently erupted at this moment. Bang! The storm wreaked havoc, instantly spreading across 1,000 miles. In an instant, all living beings that couldn't get out of the way in time were once again caught in the crossfire. Mountains were burned and oceans were boiled. Blood flowed like an ocean. Kwafu was still all right. After all, his cultivation level was high, especially the Magi. His physical body was almost the strongest in the entire primordial world. Even in the 10,000 worlds, he did not dare to say that he was unique, but he was one of the best. The body of a grand magus wasn't any weaker than ordinary defensive, primordial spiritual treasures. Coupled with the laws of wood in his natural bloodline, recovery and healing were second nature to him. As a result, Kwafu was only blown away by the force of the collision. He landed like a drum, creating a giant pit. The 10 golden crows, on the other hand, didn't fare as well. While the 10 sun sky refining array wasn't bad, their cultivation was too low. Plus, it was their first time using the array, and they had never practiced it before. If it weren't for the fact that they came from the same mother and were connected, they wouldn't have been able to instantly form the array. Even so, while they didn't suffer too much damage, they were still sent flying like a kite with its string cut. The array couldn't hold on any longer and disintegrated right away. Then, all of them spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, the 10 sun sky refining array was extraordinary. It had the combat strength of a peak Grand Luo, and the damage was shared equally among the 10 of them. As such, it wasn't fatal, but the true fire of the sun on their bodies dimmed. All 10 of them looked rather haggard. In the end, the 10 golden crows' cultivation was too weak, while Kwafu's combat strength was too powerful. If the 10 golden crows could break through to the Grand Luo realm, they might be able to fight or even kill Kwafu head-on. Unfortunately, they couldn't now. Ah, clowns indeed. Now that the array is broken, I like to see what else you have up your sleeves. Kwafu laughed proudly as if the 10 golden crows were about to fall at his hands. Chapter 1085. Idiot! The golden crow spat out coldly at Kwafu's smug look. Then, he turned around and said to Immortal Luya and the others, "Follow the plan." With that, he turned into a rainbow and used the rainbow transformation technique again. Immortal Luya and the others naturally used their theurgy at the same time, instantly increasing the distance between them and Kwafu. Trying to run? I'd like to see where you can run to. Kwafu was helpless. His attacks and defenses were not bad, but he couldn't keep up with his speed. What could he do? However, even though he couldn't match the golden crows in speed, he didn't give up on chasing them. He didn't believe that the golden crows could maintain such a theurgy for a long time. As long as they didn't have enough theurgy, they would be lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Their lives would be in his hands. Unfortunately, he didn't know that this was the natural ability of the 10 golden crows. Coupled with the blessing of the sun, the consumption was very small. Plus, the sun was everywhere and could be replenished at any time. Therefore, if he wanted to wear them down, he would have to overload the golden crows. Otherwise, it was impossible. It was because of this miscalculation that Kwafu, a grand magus, had died in the hands of a few inexperienced golden crows. It was really fate. Just like that, the golden crows flew in front while Kwafu chased after them. One in front, one behind, one above, one below, one chasing and one fleeing. The rhythm of the battle was unknowingly controlled by the golden crows. Fearing that Kwafu would lose them, the golden crows deliberately controlled their speed to give Kwafu hope. It seemed like they could catch up at any time, but they were always a little short. Of course, if that was the case, Kwafu would understand after a while and stop chasing. The Wu people didn't have a primordial spirit and didn't like to use their brains, but that didn't mean they were stupid. Therefore, the second step of the Golden Crow's plan was to bring Kwafu to the Wu people's tribes. As long as it was a witch tribe, it would be burned to the ground. With the true sun fire of the 10 Golden Crows, ordinary magi would die if they touched it. Damn it, damn it. Seeing this scene, Kwafu was so furious that his eyes almost split open. Even though he knew that it might be the Golden Crow's plan, he had to chase after them. He didn't even have time to put out the fire. Unfortunately, he could only eat the dust of the 10 Golden Crows. Kwafu raised his head and roared. He wished he could eat Kwafu's flesh and sleep on his skin. What about the 10 Golden Crows? Seeing that his plan was actually working, he was overjoyed and immediately continued to work hard. Actually, when faced with such a situation, the best way was naturally to notify the other great wizards to deal with it together. Unfortunately, Kwafu was too embarrassed to do so. He was a great wizard, but he was fooled by the 10 gold crows, who were not even fully grown and were merely primordial unity golden immortals. With his pride, how could he ask for help from other great wizards? But if he didn't ask for help from the other senior sorcerers, he would be led by the nose by the golden crows, and many of his men would die. Therefore, in order to save his subordinates and to save his face, Kwafu began to burn his chi and blood. In an instant, the Kwafu's speed skyrocketed. If it was the speed of an ordinary sedan before, it was now a supercar. The 10 gold crows had been leisurely playing around, but Kwafu's sudden attack caught them off guard. Even the 7 gold crows were almost killed by Kwafu. Let's go, let's go. Even a clay figurine has its limits, let alone Kwafu. Seeing that Kwafu had been provoked to the point of risking his life, the 10 gold crows, who had never experienced a battle of life and death, were immediately frightened. Not to mention them, once the Wu people risked their lives, even the 10 demon marshals, the Kuan Peng, Shiha, and Di Juntai would not be able to escape. Fortunately, they knew their limits and chose to run away immediately. If it was before, it would have been fine if Kwafu couldn't catch up. But now, it was a battle of life and death. Kwafu swore not to give up until he achieved his goal. Now, the two sides were in a tug-of-war. It was a matter of who would give up first. Would Kwafu burn his chi and blood first, or would Kwafu catch up to the 10 gold crows? Yuyuan, the sun. When it came to Yuyuan, it was dusk. When it came to Mingu, it was dusk. When it came to Yuyuan, it was dusk. When it came to Mingu, it was dusk. When it came to sunset. At this point, both the 10 gold crows and Kwafu had reached their limits. The rainbow transformation spell was an instinct of the 10 gold crows, but under Kwafu's pursuit, they used all their strength. At the moment, their dermic powers were almost exhausted. Their wings felt like they were being crushed by the 5 mountains. Of course, Kwafu wasn't any better. Although the Wu people had refined their bodies and were full of chi and blood, it was only relative. After such a long time, Kwafu's dermic powers and physical strength were almost exhausted. His aura was unstable, as if it was going to drop. His face was pale. Big brother, I can't hold on any longer. Big brother, I can't hold on either. Big brother, I can't fly anymore. Big brother, why hasn't third uncle come out yet? Yeah, we're almost killed by Kwafu. Luya and the others said weakly. Don't worry. Even if third uncle doesn't come out, I have a way to save myself. The big gold crow knew that everyone was at their limits. Although he also wondered why Fu Sang hadn't appeared, he thought that she had gone to stop the other Wu people. He didn't suspect anything else. As for having a way to save their lives, it wasn't just for show. Although they were on Penglai Island and had the Fu Sang tree by their side, Dijun still left a life-saving magical power for them out of love and insurance. Because the big gold crow was the big brother and had a relatively steady character, Dijun had given it to him for safekeeping. He couldn't use it unless it was absolutely necessary. However, in this situation, he had to use it. Run, keep running. See if I don't turn you horned beasts into ashes. Kwafu's expression was ferocious as he gnashed his teeth. Kwafu, do you really think you can defeat us? The big gold crow snorted coldly. Barbarians are barbarians. Even when death is at hand, they are still dreaming. At this point, the big gold crow didn't give Kwafu any time to react. He pulled out a golden feather from his tail and threw it out. Die! Of course, this was not the big gold crow's feather. Instead, it was a life-saving method that Dijun had left for the 10 gold crows. It was a method similar to a talisman, which contained Dijun's true fire of the sun. Given Emperor Jun's cultivation, the life-saving means he left to the golden crows were naturally extraordinary. Even Kwafu, at his peak, Ho, Yi, and Xingtian would have a slim chance of surviving the fire of the sun, let alone Kwafu in his current state. Buzz! After the golden crow's feather was taken out by the great golden crow, it suddenly burst forth with an earth-shattering golden light. Within that golden light, there was an extremely terrifying aura. That aura was above the heavens and earth, as if it was a sovereign, supreme, and incomparably tyrannical. Chapter 1086. Oh no! The moment the golden raven took out its feather, Kwafu knew that something was wrong. However, before he could react, he was engulfed by the terrifying aura. Even with Kwafu's level of cultivation, he could not help but change his expression. He was fine when he was at his peak, but now, he could not even lift his head. His entire body was trembling, and he could not even breathe properly. In a flash, a silhouette materialized. He wore a crown, a pair of boots, and a golden robe. The front of the robe was embroidered with thousands of demons worshipping, and the back was embroidered with the Jotian star. Father! Seeing the golden silhouette that was emitting a domineering aura, Luya and the others exclaimed. At the same time, they calmed down and revealed a look of ecstasy. How dare you attack my child? You're seeking death. The golden silhouette stood with his hands behind his back. He had dazzling golden hair and a handsome face. His deep eyes contained a powerful charisma that was unforgettable. As soon as the golden figure appeared, his sharp, eagle-like eyes locked on Kwafu. Then, a grand and deep voice rumbled across the world. Dijun! Seeing this person's face, Kwafu's pupils constricted and he broke out in a cold sweat. Then, without another word, Kwafu once again ignited his blood essence and ran. Though Wu people loved to fight, they were not inflexible and did not know when to retreat, especially when it was unnecessary and there was no chance of winning. Dijun was a guest of the Purple Cloud Palace. In the entire world, other than the saints, he was one of the most powerful people. The person who understood you the most was your enemy. The sorcerer and demon kind were considered to be at each other's throats. Therefore, they knew Dijun very well. Because of this, they knew how terrifying this person was. In a one-on-one battle, even if Dijun did not use his spiritual treasure, he would not be at a disadvantage against Dijiang and the Candle Dragon. He was even stronger than Chang Liang, Gomong, and the others. If he used his spiritual treasure, he could even fight against 3 of them. Even if such a person did not come in person, he would not be able to defeat him, let alone in his current situation. Therefore, Kwafu turned around and ran. Die. Watching Kwafu flee, Jun's expression didn't change in the slightest. He gently raised his hand and a gorgeous flame whizzed over. Finally, it gathered in his palm and turned into a gorgeous fireball. That gorgeous ball of fire was extremely beautiful, as if it contained a myriad of colors. Within it, a golden crow danced gracefully, bathing in the flames. However, under that kind of swaying beauty. However, it contained a terrifying power that caused people to feel terrified. Then, with a flick of his finger, he tore through space and appeared on Kwafu's body. Ah! As Kwafu screamed, the great wizard of the Wu people, Kwafu, who could counterattack as sage to be, was turned into ashes without any resistance. After that strike, Jun's figure also turned into spots of light and disappeared. Kwafu. At this moment, a mournful and heartbroken voice rang out. Following that, a muscular man who looked similar to Kwafu rushed over with a bow and arrows on his back. Hui. He was a top great wizard of the Hotu bloodline and was on good terms with Kwafu. Together with Xing, Tian, and Shi Yu, they were known as the three heroes of the Wu people. His level of cultivation was even higher than the 10 demon marshals. The Golden Crow's desolation had caused great losses to the Wu people. Kwafu didn't inform anyone else, but after a long time, he couldn't keep it a secret anymore. Coincidentally, He came to visit and heard about it. Seeing that Kwafu hadn't stopped the situation after so long, he was worried that something might go wrong and followed. Though he learned the news late, Hou Yi's speed wasn't any slower than the Golden Crow's rainbow transformation technique. The Hotu bloodline wasn't just strong in defense. Standing on the ground, without a top spiritual treasure, it was impossible to break through their defense. They were also very fast and could use the power of the earth to arrive at their destination with a thought. Unfortunately, though Hou hurried over, he was still one step behind. From afar, he saw Kwafu being burned to ashes by the solar true fire, and his peachwood staff turning into a peach forest. Damn you all! Seeing this, Hou Yi's anger and hatred were about to pierce through the sky. Having no time to think, he took out the bow and arrows on his back. He didn't know the names of these two items, but they were the treasures left by the Chaos Archer Fiend, not the Wu people's and Hou Yi's own creation. However, this bow would become the sun-shooting bow and the sunset arrow after today. Although they weren't Chaos Spirit treasures anymore, they were still top Khanate Spirit treasures. However, because this bow and arrow were not only spirit treasures, but also weapons, the Wu people could use them without refining them. He was good at archery and had performed well in the last great war of sorcerers and demons. As a reward, he received this item. It had never been used before, but today, he was going to make a fortune. He stood on the ground, and with a flash of light, the sun-shooting bow suddenly appeared in his hand. On the entire bow, one could see the gray light of primal chaos flowing, blending into one. A vast, chaotic, heavy, and powerful aura burst forth. He pulled the bow and put the arrow. Everything was done in one go. He gathered his energy and aimed at the 10 golden crows. Poof! Unparalleled speed, overwhelming strength, and a will that could kill immortals and gods. At this moment, it was perfectly displayed. The moment the bowstring was released, the arrow shot out. Buzz! The moment the sunset arrow left the sun-shooting bow, it arrived in front of the 10 golden crows. It seemed to have crossed the boundaries of time and space. It was so sharp that Luya did not even have a chance to resist. He could only watch as the arrow pierced through him. It wasn't just because it was too fast for Luya to react, but also because the will of the Grim Reaper had locked down his essence spirit. That was why he didn't even have time to react. Run! However, the shadow of death didn't hang over his head. When he came back to his senses, he saw that the sunset arrow had already pierced through the chests of the 7 golden crows, tearing their bodies apart. The 7 golden crows closest to him pushed him away, but he was shot by the sunset arrow. Seventh brother, seventh brother, seventh brother. At this moment, it was the 10 golden crows who felt the heart-wrenching pain. Just like how Hou Yi felt when he saw Kwafu die. Hearing the cries of the 10 golden crows, Hou-Yi didn't feel any sympathy. Instead, it made him even more murderous. To Hou-Yi, the death of one golden crow wasn't enough. He was so angry that he wanted to destroy the entire demon race. Therefore, after the first arrow, he didn't hesitate at all. The next arrow followed closely behind. With one arrow in hand, the world was mine. Hou-Yi's expression was ferocious, and his energy surged. An immeasurable amount of power of the earth was added to his body. Dense killing intent gathered on the sun-shooting bow and the sunset arrow. In an instant, the arrow glowed red, and the murderous intent solidified. As expected, this arrow killed another little golden crow. Chapter 1087. Go quickly. The golden crow glared at Hou-Yi. He pushed his younger brother away and turned around to pounce on Hou-Yi. Huh? Hou-Yi sneered. Without any hesitation, he shot another arrow through the golden crow's body. Big brother, little 10, go quickly. Go quickly. Seeing Hou-Yi's ferocity, the other golden crows knew that there was absolutely no hope of escaping together. Therefore, like the golden crow, they turned around and pounced on Hou-Yi, leaving the hope of survival to Luya, hoping that they could buy him some time. Go! None of you can leave today. Hou-Yi's cold voice seemed to be able to freeze the whole world. His movements did not slow down because of anything else. 1 arrow, 2 arrows, 3 arrows. Hou-Yi shot them unhurriedly. He did not use rapid shooting, nor was he in a hurry to kill all the golden crows. It was not that he could not, but that he did not want to. He wanted them to die slowly in despair. Only in this way could he vent his anger and pay tribute to Kwa Fu's spirit in heaven. The 7 golden crows were dead. The first golden crow was dead. Then the 3rd golden crow, the 4th golden crow. In the end, only the 10th golden crow, Luya, was left alone in the air. He looked at the arrow that was getting bigger in his eyes in despair. Ever since the golden crow used the life-saving trump card that Dijun had left for him, Dijun instantly understood what was going on. He could not help but stand up. Big brother, what's wrong? Seeing that Dijun, who was having a good discussion, suddenly became nervous again, Tai and the others were frightened. The life-saving trump card that I left for the children has been used by Big Brother, Dijun said anxiously. Before he finished speaking, he had already disappeared from the Lingxiao Palace. What? The trump card that Big Brother left for Big Brother has been used? Tai was stunned. How is that possible? Aren't they on Penglai Island? How can they use it so well? Is it dangerous? Thinking of this, Tai's pupils shrank. He immediately flew out after Dijun Fushi, Kuan Peng, and the others looked at each other, but there were traces of worry on their faces. Wow! After leaving the soaring Heaven King Palace, Dijun, who was rushing towards the location of the 10 golden crows, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. In an instant, a murderous aura that could kill the entire world was released. Dijun was enraged, and he roared towards the sky. His eyes were crimson red, and the aura around his body fluctuated like raging waves. Those who didn't know would think that he was bedeviled. Big brother, what's wrong? He had an ominous premonition when he saw Emperor Jun. He asked hurriedly, what's wrong? Quick, bell of primal chaos. Over here, save him. Dijun did not answer Tai. He only gave Tai an address. Big brother, don't be anxious. Seeing this, Tai did not say anything else. He opened his mouth and spat out some natal vital energy onto the bell of primal chaos. Then, he smashed it into the air. A space tunnel was formed instantly. Dijun and Tai immediately stepped in and out. When he walked out again, he was already at the location of the 10 golden crows. He saw the 9 golden crows fall, and immortal Luya was about to die. How dare you? Freeze! Dijun and Tai were so angry that their eyes were about to pop. They could no longer care about being sad. Tai quickly took out the bell of primal chaos and froze the space. He blocked the sunset arrow and protected immortal Luya. Meanwhile, Dijun took out the emperor's sword that he carried with him and slashed at Hou-Yi. Clang! An ancient sword hum sounded in the sky at that moment. The sword light raged, and the sword light froze 19 provinces. Hou Yi's pupils constricted at the sight of this. His heart felt like it was about to explode. Actually, when Di Jun and Tai Yi had appeared, he had a bad feeling that things were going to be bad. First, he could not get rid of the evil completely. He had to get rid of the root of the problem. Second, he was worried about his own safety. Sure enough, the result was just as he had expected. The bell of primal chaos froze the sunset arrow. Immortal Luya was saved, and Di Jun slashed at him in anger. Hou Yi had no doubt that if the sword light hit him, he would be annihilated in an instant. The magic that Di Jun had left behind for the 10 golden crows had been burned to ashes by Kwafu, not to mention Kwafu attacking with all his might. At this moment, the sword hum that sounded like a song of death resounded in the heavens and the earth. Millions of crystalline and translucent dragon-shaped sword lights sprayed out and covered the heavens and the earth like a tide, causing the heavens and the earth to tremble and form ripples that could be seen with the naked eye. It seemed that he would die in the next moment. However, Hou Yi did not show fear or turn around to escape. It was useless. When two sides met, the brave would win. In this situation, turning around to escape was the absolute worst option. If he fought with all his might, he might have a chance of survival. He shoots the 9 heavens. Arrow descends the great sun kill. Hou Yi bellowed. He burned his blood essence and poured all his supernatural power into the sun-shooting bow. His resolute will was projected onto the sunset arrow. He would draw the bow into a full moon, look to the northwest, and shoot the celestial wolf. If he did not succeed, he would die. Wong. The 10,000-foot arrow light surged and shot out at an indescribably fast speed. Those below the sage-to-be could not see the trajectory at all. Even the 10 demon marshals could only see a ray of light passing through the void. Unfortunately, although Hou Yi fought with all his might, his cultivation was still much lower than Di Jun's. One was at the early stage of sage-to-be, while the other was at the peak stage of sage-to-be. Although the sun-shooting bow and the sunset arrow were not bad, they were not at their peak. On the other hand, the Celestial Emperor sword was no weaker than Mosquito Doran's Yuan-Tu Avicii sword and Tongtian's Shimping sword. Wong. The sword light and arrow light collided. There was no earth-shattering sound. Instead, the sunset arrow instantly melted like snow in the spring. The Celestial Emperor's sword continued to slash at Hou Yi. Bam! Hou Yi looked like he had been turned into a sieve by the torrent of sword light. Wherever the sword light passed, his clothes, skin, and flesh were instantly reduced to dust. Even his bones were like cracked porcelain, filled with cracks. If not for the sun-shooting bow emitting a faint light to protect him, he would have long followed in Kwafu's footsteps and been reduced to dust by the sword chi. Even so, Hou Yi's current situation was not good. Even if Di Jun did not attack and did not save him, he would die in less than an hour. After all, the sun-shooting bow was no longer as powerful as it used to be. Moreover, it was not a defensive spiritual treasure. Fortunately, it managed to fight for a chance of survival for him. How dare you, Di Jun? Just as Di Jun was about to continue attacking and turn Hou Yi's bones into dust, a roar was heard. Following that, a colorful flag appeared above Hou Yi's head, fluttering in the wind as it protected him. It also sprinkled down streams of power of creation, expelling the sword chi from Hou Yi's body and healing his body at the same time. Then Di Jiang, He Tu, and Fang Qingshan appeared one after another. Chapter 1088. Originally, Di Jun, Tai Yi, and even Luya wanted to kill Luya. However, when they saw the Wu people, Zhu Wu, and especially He Tu and Fang Qingshan, the anger in Di Jun and Tai Yi's hearts seemed to be extinguished by a basin of cold water. In an instant, they suppressed their emotions with reason and regained a trace of sobriety. Good, very good. Hou Yi killed my 9 sons. If I don't avenge this, I'm not worthy of being a celestial emperor. Emperor Jiang, This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Let's wait and see. Dijun knew that there was no way for him to take revenge today. Besides, a wise man would not stand under a collapsing wall. Fearing that Hutu would attack him, Dijun forcibly suppressed the anger and sorrow in his heart. He waved his hand and took Luya away. Then he said some harsh words and instantly broke the space and returned to the heavenly court. Huda did not do anything as she watched Dijun leave. She knew Hongjun would not allow her to attack Dijun and Tai Yi. As for Dijiang and the others, there was no stopping Dijun and Tai Yi from leaving. Sigh, what a pity. Looking at the dying Ho-Yi, Hutu's heart ached. After all, Ho-Yi was not only one of the 3 heroes of the Wu people, but also the most outstanding descendant of her Hutu bloodline. Especially after he had proved his Tao and become a saint, Ho-Yi was the best candidate to be the master of the Hutu lineage. But now, he had been beaten up by Dijun. In the future, even with the cultivation of the Earth middle stage primordial chaos, he did not dare to say that he could cure him. Moreover, even if he could, he was afraid that in the future, Taoist Hutu, don't worry. There is always a way out. As if understanding the worries of Hutu and the others, Fang Qingshan smiled. Oh, hearing Fang Qingshan's words, Hutu, Emperor Jiang, and the others were delighted. In their opinion, since Fang Qingshan said so, there must be a way. When they were about to ask, they suddenly found a vision flashing above their heads. The clouds were dyed black and yellow. Boundless merit gathered, transforming into a beam of light that fell towards Ho-Yi. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan waved his hand and put away the 5 elements flags. Enveloped by merit, Ho-Yi's injuries healed at a visible speed. Not only that, but there was also a Yuan spirit forming in his mind. 10 suns hung high in the sky, unparalleled in slaughter and deep karma. Although Ho-Yi had shot down the sun for the sake of the Wu people in Kwafu, he had also indirectly saved the Desolation Continent, which was a great merit. Therefore, even though Ho-Yi only narrowly escaped death this time, today his misfortune turned to joy. It was a blessing in disguise. He had been stuck at the peak-level senior magus for a very long time. This time, with the help of Dijun and the power of natural rewards, he managed to make a breakthrough and become the 13th Zhu Wu of the Wu people, and the first Zhu Wu to grow up after the 12th Zhu Wu. More importantly, with the help of fate and virtue, Ho-Yi became the second person among the Wu people to condense his nascent divinity after Hutu. Great, great, great! Seeing Ho-Yi's breakthrough, the happiest person was Dijiang. Hutu proving Tao and becoming a saint was great, but because he couldn't fight and the great formation of divine beings killing was incomplete, he was worried about it. Now, he could use Ho-Yi to make up for it. Plus, Ho-Yi and Hutu were of the same lineage, which could make up for the earth position in the great formation of divine beings killing. However, Ho-Yi had just broken through, and there was still a huge gap between him and the 12th Zhu Wu. If he really set up a formation, it would be a shortcoming that could be easily broken through, especially when he and Dijun were irreconcilable enemies. It would be even easier to target him. Luckily, there was still time. With the foundation of the Wu people, if they trained one person, Ho-Yi could at least reach the advanced stage of the demi-saint level, even if not the peak of the demi-saint level. Besides, from the desolation of the 10 golden crows, Ho-Yi shooting the sun, Dijun, Dijiang, Hutu, and the others appeared one after another. Even though the mysteries of heaven were chaotic, those who should know still knew. After seeing Hutu, there was another Zhu Wu, who made up the great formation of divine beings killing. Even though it wasn't as good as Hutu, it was still valuable. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim that the Wu people were so lucky. As for the demon tribe, Dijun and the others were naturally furious. After all, the demon tribe suffered a great loss this time. Not only did they lose 9 golden crows, but they also let the Wu people make use of them to make another Zhu Wu, and they only lost 1 senior sorcerer. Under such circumstances, because Daozu grounded the sage, the demon tribe's advantage was gone instantly, but it was almost there. Under such circumstances, Dijun didn't have much time to care about it. He came back and gave some instructions, then left the heavenly court with Luya and came to the imperial palace of Snail. Entrusted to him, 9 of his sons died at once, and only Luya was left. To ensure that his bloodline wouldn't end, Dijun had to put down his pride and come to beg Nuwa. After all, he didn't have much confidence that he could survive the great war of sorcery and demon tribe. How pitiful parents are. Also, he had to prepare another trump card for the upcoming great war of sorcery and demon tribe, but he needed to win Nuwa's approval. The reason for this was that some small demons realized that if they used human blood to refine a spiritual treasure, it would be very beneficial to fight against the Wu people. They could easily break through the physical defense of the Wu people, which was comparable to a spiritual treasure. The reason why the Wu people were so strong, even without a primordial spirit or a spiritual treasure, they were still invincible. Other than the laws of their natural bloodline, they had a strong physical body, infinite strength, and unparalleled defense. If they could break through their defense unexpectedly, the demon tribe's chances of winning would increase by 30%. Therefore, Dijun wanted to slaughter the humans to refine a treasure specially used against the Wu people. However, the human tribe was created by Goddess Nviwa. Although she did not pay much attention to it later, she still owed it to Goddess Nviwa, and it was related to fate. Therefore, Emperor June wanted to ask for her permission first. Inner chaos, Emperor Snail Sky. Dijun brought the surviving Golden Crow 10th Prince, Luya, to Emperor Nuwa's palace. At this moment, Nuwa's maidservant, Jean Ning, who flew over after Nuwa became a sage, was already waiting to welcome them. Clearly, Nuwa knew about Dijun's arrival. Dijun pays his respects to goddess Jean Ning. Although Jean Ning couldn't compare with Dijun in terms of identity, status, and strength, she was Nuwa's mount after all. To a certain extent, she represented Nuwa as a sage. As the saying goes, one should show respect to the Buddha. Moreover, he had a favor to ask this time, so Dijun didn't dare to be impolite. Goddess, please send a message for me. Just say that Dijun wants to see Her Highness for something important. Although Jean Ning wasn't a member of the demon tribe and didn't often go to desolation with Nuwa, she knew what kind of person Dijun was. He was noble, arrogant, domineering, and looked down on the world. She had never seen such a polite Dijun. A trace of surprise flashed in her eyes, but she didn't show any impoliteness. She turned sideways to bow, then returned a bow, and said in a gentle voice, "Demon Emperor, you don't have to be so polite. Her Highness already knew of your Majesty's arrival and asked me to wait here. There's no need to announce your arrival. Please come in. If that's the case, then I will have to trouble you. Please lead the way." Dijun nodded. Then, led by Jean Ning, Dijun entered the main hall of Emperor Nuwa's palace. He saw Her Highness Nuwa, who was sitting on a cloud bed and looked compassionate and unparalleled. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.